You might not believe that Leo Flynn, the Dragon King, was a generous man, but you could always believe that the Dragon's Den was built to last. Every material was top shelf, every corner cut proof. It was the protagonist's fortress, after all, and even a man like Leo Flynn wouldn't skimp on his own lair. He spared no expense on his personal projects, and it showed. Anya Kuznetsov pressed herself against a thick concrete wall, the material easily stopping the barrage of bullets chewing at the other side. The two remaining goons still on their feet were unloading everything they had in her direction. Rat-tat-tat-tat-tat. Sparks flew as rounds ricocheted off the reinforced structure. When you're broke, you take precise shots. When you're rich, you just spray and pray. They were operating on the principle that the second Anya poked her head out, she was dead. "Come on out. You scared," one of them yelled. "Surrender now, and I'll let you live." Or better yet, a smoother, more calculating voice cut in, "Work for me. I know your relationship with the Dragon King was purely professional. You're only here because you have your own needs." It was Julian Nightmare Kai, his voice oozing insincere charm. "We can come to an agreement. Whatever the Dragon King promised you, I, Julian Kai, will triple it. You won't have to lift a finger for the den. You can stay, you can be a figurehead, whatever you want. Here, you'll be at the very top. You can even choose whether or not to listen to my orders. No one will interfere with you." He was a master at painting pretty pictures. He didn't just know how to sell a dream. He understood the art, the very technique of the empty promise. In reality, Julian had no intention of letting Anya live. A ticking time bomb, like her, one that could go off at any moment. Who could live like that, constantly looking over their shoulder, unable to eat or sleep in peace? The thought alone was infuriating. His plan was simple. The moment Anya stepped out to negotiate, he'd unload a full magazine into her. That was how Julian Kai operated. Fast, precise, and ruthless. Ursula Rome's eyes flickered, catching on to his plan. She chimed in, her voice sweet. "He's right, Anya sweetie. Just come on out. Name your price." They talked a big game, but the suppressing fire never let up. Step by step, they advanced on Anya's position. When they were less than 20 feet away, Anya's voice drifted from behind the wall, perfectly calm and devoid of emotion. "I don't feel a shred of sincerity in your offer." The words stopped Julian and his crew in their tracks. "Hold your fire," Julian commanded, raising a fist. He was decisive. He wasn't afraid of Anya talking. He was afraid of her staying silent. He knew Nemesis had a reputation. Once she made up her mind, she was immovable. Unless she spoke, no one was getting out of this. Ursula, who also knew Anya's reputation, quickly added, "Come on out, honey. It's just business. We could talk this through." A valuable lesson in life. Never just listen to what people say. Watch what they do. Julian and Ursula spoke of acceptance, but the rifles in their hands never lowered. Their muzzles remained trained on the corner, their steps slowing as they crept closer. "Don't come any closer," Anya's voice warned. "If you want to talk, holding guns isn't exactly proper etiquette, is it?" Julian and Ursula flinched. They had momentarily forgotten they were dealing with the world's #1 assassin. Her hearing was far beyond that of a normal person. The remaining men looked to Julian, awaiting his command. After a brief pause, Julian's expression hardened. "Miss Kuznetsov, every negotiation requires leverage. If you want a bloodbath, we can give you one. We're not cornered yet, but I guarantee you'll be injured in the process. Unless, of course, you'd rather we all go down together." He took a breath. "If you want sincerity, let's all show it. Let's drop our weapons first." His words were flawless. Ursula shot him a confused look, but Julian just gave her a reassuring smile. Then, he unceremoniously tossed his rifle to the side, letting it clatter to the floor about 6 feet from the corner, far enough that it would take a moment to retrieve. It was a calculated risk, but it had the advantage of being just barely visible from Anya's perspective. "Your turn," he said. 2 submachine guns sailed out from behind the wall, landing on the floor in imitation of Julian's move. "She's actually disarming." This was a very good sign. Everyone knew it. This #1 assassin was a badass, a true killing machine. Julian, a monster in his own right, had to admit that. She was good at one thing, and one thing only, killing. Beyond that, she was clueless, almost laughably naive about the darkness in people's hearts. She was a child in an adult's body, incapable of even the most basic deception. "Good, very good," Julian grinned, then waved at the 2 men behind him. 2 more rifles were tossed onto the pile. Without him having to say another word, the sniper rifle from Anya's back followed. Julian and Ursula's hearts pounded. "This is perfect." Without hesitation, Ursula threw her own AK-47 onto the growing heap of discarded weapons. A moment later, Anya's sidearm joined the pile. Is that all? Julian asked. That's all. Anya replied flatly. Julian and Ursula finally let out a collective sigh of relief. If Anya said that was it, then that was it. Coming from anyone else, Julian would have been suspicious. But why not Anya? Because she was the world's most famous, brutally honest assassin. Ha ha. Well then, Miss Kuznetsov, are you going to walk out? Or should we come to you? You come to me, Anya said after a beat. She added, all four of you. Julian smiled. Of course. He gestured for the two remaining grunts to move forward. They exchanged uneasy glances but complied, walking ahead while Julian and Ursula followed behind. What? Did you think Julian would go first just because he thought Anya was unarmed? What kind of boss rushes to the front line? Maybe in the age of swords and shields to boost morale. Now, that was just suicide. Julian Nightmare. Kai wasn't fearless, but he wasn't stupid enough to throw his life away. In that moment, every heart in the corridor was hammering. Thump, 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 thump. 15 feet, 10 feet, 6 feet. They had reached the pile of discarded guns. All they had to do was bend down, and they'd be rearmed in an instant. 4 of them, one of her, and Anya's own weapons were at least 6 feet away from her position. She'd have to step out into their line of fire to get them. An unarmed dragon queen was a tiger without teeth. You didn't need a hero to take her down. A couple of ordinary guys with fists could do the job. What was there to be afraid of? A cold glint flashed in Julian's eyes. He resisted the urge to order his men to grab the guns immediately. That might scare her off, and a fleeing Anya was the most dangerous kind. He wanted to end this nightmare himself, right here, right now. And in that exact instant, 3 or 4 small, dark spheres rolled out from behind the corner. Everyone's nerves were stretched taut. The slightest movement would have set them off, let alone several unidentified rolling objects. Son of a bitch, Julian roared, diving toward Ursula. The distance was too short, the time it took for the small black balls to hit the floor too brief. It all happened in a flash. Boom, boom, boom. A torrent of fire erupted down the hallway. The 2 grunts leading the way were instantly engulfed by the fireball. Their bodies turned to charred meat. The back of Ursula's exquisite dress was seared away. Her skin left a blistering, bloody ruin. Wait, why wasn't Julian burned? Because in a single fluid motion as he fell, he had grabbed Ursula and pulled her on top of him like a human shield. Better her than him. Every man for himself. When facing death, everything else is just smoke and mirrors. Ursula's eyes were wide with disbelief. The shockwave from the explosion left both of them deafened, their ears ringing. The moment the fireball dissipated, Julian kicked her aside and scrambled backward. The guns they had dropped were now a mangled, useless heap of metal, but the weapons at the far end of the conference room were untouched. He couldn't wait. He wouldn't wait. As for kicking Ursula away, he felt not a shred of guilt. A woman? What was she compared to his own life? Heh. Gotcha. Julian lunged like a starved wolf, shoving aside the charred corpses to snatch the rifles from their dead hands. Bang, 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 bang. A series of shots rang out from behind him. Julian's back had been to the doorway. In his mind, there was no way Anya could have gotten to him that fast. He was absolutely certain he had enough time to rearm himself and be safe. It was with that certainty that he had desperately scrambled for a weapon. Why? Why do you still have a gun? Julian coughed up blood, his back riddled with bullets. He managed to turn, his eyes finding the shooter. It was none other than Ursula, lying on the ground, her back a grotesque mess of burns, a pistol smoking in her hand. Isn't it normal for me to carry a concealed weapon? She said, her voice laced with pure hatred. A wave of agony from her back sent a sheen of cold sweat across her face. The deadliest of a species. You bitch, Julian seethed, his eyes bloodshot as he leveled his rifle at her. Let me send you on your way. Ursula's face was a mask of contempt. She closed her beautiful eyes, ready to accept her fate. In that split second, the air whistled as if torn apart. A razor-sharp combat knife embedded itself between Julian's eyes, the blade punching straight through his skull. Bang, bang, bang. He pulled the trigger in his final moments, but as his body collapsed, the rifle's aim went wild, the bullets harmlessly peppering the ceiling. Hearing the commotion, Ursula cautiously opened her eyes. She saw Julian's body hit the floor and instantly understood. A wave of grim satisfaction washed over her, quickly followed by the cold realization of what would happen next. But at least she got to see that bastard die before her own end. That was enough. Nemesis, she said, her voice strained. I know you don't have a taste for torturing your prey. Just make it quick. Click-clack, click-clack. The sound of shoes on the tiled floor echoed like a death knell in her mind. But she felt no fear. When you chose this line of work, you always knew this day would come. Dying at the hands of the world's #1 assassin was hardly a disgrace. Anya ignored her completely, walking past her toward Julian's corpse. Her back was now completely exposed. As Anya bent to inspect the body, a flicker of murderous intent sparked in Ursula's eyes, but it died just as quickly as it appeared. Her earlier success was a fluke, born entirely of Julian's arrogance. Even with Anya presenting such an obvious weakness, Ursula couldn't bring herself to make a move. "Yep, he's cold," Anya announced, standing up. She turned and walked back toward the doorway. Ursula, still waiting for death, frowned. It wasn't until Anya reached the exit that she realized something was wrong. She finally opened her eyes, her face a canvas of confusion. She asked the same question Julian had. "Why?" Of course, the context was entirely different. Anya replied coolly, "My target was Julian Kai." A look of dazed relief washed over Ursula's face. "Then, what about me?" she asked cautiously. "You should be glad you didn't try anything just now." Tears streamed down Ursula's face. Tears of joy, of pain, of 1,000 emotions too complex to name. A torrent of words rose in her throat, but only one sentence came out. "Thank you." Anya was already gone. She didn't hear the gratitude. If she had, she might have come back and finished the job. The Dragon Queen had her principles, and she had a particular dislike for being thanked. Meanwhile, the external assault on the Dragon's Den was being systematically dismantled. The Loyalist factions, working with Cassie and Reyna, had turned the tables on the traitors. The plot had more twists than a Hollywood blockbuster. You thought you were watching a simple coup, but it was a game of 4D chess all along. The Dragon's Den was in ruins, but the core remained intact. That night, "Hello? What? Anya, you're going back to the States? So soon?" Cassie Lee was in the middle of cleaning up the mess at the den when Anya's call came through. "Wait, you're already at the airport? My God. Anya, you could have waited for me." She paused, listening. "The den needs a new leader." "Anya, are you interested in becoming the Dragon Queen?" "No, for real this time." "What? Not interested? Come on, just a figurehead. We can use your name to keep the jackals at bay." "Yes, your reputation is that big. It's enough to scare naughty children into behaving." Okay, as long as you agree. Don't worry, you'll still get your cut." Another pause. "Me? Stay here? Are you crazy?" "No way. As soon as I tie up the loose ends here, I'm going home, too. Life is too short for this crap." "I'm not insane." Vance Corporation headquarters, New York City. Several days had passed since Leo Flynn's demise. For Asher Vance, these were days lived without a shadow of fear. He treated each one as if it were his last, never certain when the damn system would yank him back to replay the script. The thought was horrifying. So he wrote another business plan, this one tailored specifically for the Hayes family, and gave it to Serafina. It was entirely different from the one he'd co-developed with her and Jessica Young, focusing on industries where the Hayes Corporation could excel. When Serafina received it, she was stunned. The Hayes family was falling behind the other 3 great families of New York. Without this lifeline, she knew that within 5 years, the 4 families would become 3. They would have been pushed out the gap too vast a bridge. This comprehensive strategy was the solution to their most urgent problem. And so, while her lips said one thing, her body was all too honest, eagerly pulling Asher into more private tutoring sessions to discuss the finer points of applied biology. Asher was leaving no regrets on the table. He didn't know if the system would screw him over again, or if tomorrow would even come. At that point, Scarlett hadn't yet revealed her secret. The she-devil was a woman of her word. She'd promised the heroines a share of the profits, and a share they would get. Besides, who was really getting the better end of the deal? The Vance family, allied with the other great families, had secured generations of prosperity for their descendants. After Serafina, there was Zara Thorne. She had contributed a great deal, and Asher had seen it. What are you thinking? Of course not. Asher wasn't some lecher who couldn't walk straight at the sight of a beautiful woman. The friendship between them was pure. It couldn't be tainted. Asher's gift to Zara was a thick dossier containing the deepest, darkest secrets of New York's most powerful figures, from corporate titans to underworld dons. Details of who they'd killed for money before they made their name, right down to the victim's name and date. Financial crimes, political leverage, the mistresses they kept stashed away in secret apartments. Asher had it all, down to the times and locations of their trysts. How'd he know all this? The intel was originally compiled by Leo Flynn in the novel, a product of his protagonist's plot armor. His underlings had near supernatural luck, digging up dirt no one else could touch. In the original story, Leo used this blackmail to win over Marcus Thorne, who was so impressed he practically handed his granddaughter over. But Asher knew more, so much more. Thanks to the system awakening when he was a child, he knew he would one day return to his own world. So he had started laying the groundwork, putting people in place, building an intelligence network vaster than anyone could imagine. He hadn't done it for himself, but as an insurance policy in case the novel's protagonist proved too difficult to handle. It was a weapon meant for Leo. He never had to use it in his past life, and he didn't need it now. He'd already taken care of the crooked-mouthed dragon king himself. Asher would never forget the look on Zara's face when he handed her that dossier. And that was just a small fraction of what he had. He'd held back, afraid of giving her a heart attack. But it was more than enough to send her into a state of euphoria. She threw her arms around him and planted a flurry of kisses all over his face, her reaction even more intense than Seraphina's. Later, Asher politely declined Zara's proposal for an in-depth exploration of human biological sciences. It was getting late, and he had promised to have dinner with his wife. He could flake on anyone, but not the she-devil. Zara didn't mind. She told him they had plenty of time, her mind already racing. The information in that folder was too big, too explosive. She needed to go home and strategize. Asher just smiled. He was about to witness the rise of a new queen of the underworld, and her ascent would be meteoric. In the right hands, that file could make anyone a king. Even an ordinary person could use it to climb the social ladder. Find one of the city's most respected billionaires, whose wife had cheated on him before they were even married. Reveal that the son he'd doted on for years wasn't his. All it would take was a simple paternity test. Who would ever suspect such a thing in a picture-perfect marriage? Not even Sherlock Holmes could have seen that coming. The files were filled with such opportunities. Husbands being cuckolded, wives being betrayed, the current locations of old enemies. It was a treasure trove of leverage, a chance for the common man to become a kingmaker. For Asher, it was of little use. But for Zara and the Thorne family, it was a bond, a weapon, and an opportunity. The Young sisters also reaped their rewards. Jessica's business empire expanded, and Catherine was promoted from officer to detective captain. Victor Stone remained on as head of security. As for Riley Song, Scarlett promised her an internship at the Zhou family's company as soon as she finished her junior year at Columbia. Asher had tried to recruit her, but Riley had blushed and declined. Since he and Scarlett were married, she felt working for either of them was the same, and staying too close to Asher felt awkward. Then there was Chloe, and this was where Asher felt awkward. His sister wasn't his biological sister. The revelation had hit him hard. His parents had kept that secret locked down tight. They'd even fooled him, a transmigrator and a regressor who knew the entire plot. It felt like a final, malicious joke from the novel's author, a convenient little twist to make a potential romance between Leo and Chloe more palatable, to keep readers from mailing him angry letters and razor blades. Back in his office at Vance Corporation, Asher snapped out of his reverie. He was enjoying a shoulder massage from his secretary, Jasmine Jiang. "Jasmine," he said suddenly, his voice cool. "Is there anything you want?" Jasmine Jiang's slender, pale hands paused for a fraction of a second. She blinked, a graceful curve forming on her lips. "Anything?" Asher nodded, his tone serious. "Anything." Jasmine was a hire made by his mother, Eleanor. Eleanor had an uncanny eye for talent. She'd spotted Jasmine at an Ivy League university before she'd even graduated and signed her on the spot. When Asher took over his office, Eleanor had assigned Jasmine to him. For 2 lifetimes, Asher had been a hands-off boss, leaving almost everything for Jasmine to handle. He had no doubt that if she ever decided to quit, she could start her own company and become a billionaire within 20 years. The years by his side had given her an unparalleled network and a keen business acumen. Combined with her own savings, her transformation into a self-made titan was a certainty. "Oh, anything." Jasmine's voice shifted, a playful, teasing lilt entering her tone. It held a mix of happiness and mischief. She'd been his secretary for what felt like a decade, counting his past life. Did Asher not know what she was thinking? She was dreaming again. "Except me," Asher added dryly. Behind him, Jasmine pouted, and the pressure of her fingers on his shoulders increased. "Aren't you being a little presumptuous, Mr. Vance?" she said, her tone dripping with false innocence. Asher just chuckled. The pressure felt good. A man who had mastered ancient martial arts could handle a little squeeze. He could handle a lot more, in fact. The office fell silent. Usually, after a moment of awkward silence like this, the sound of Anya crunching on chips would fill the air. But now, there was only quiet. Since Asher didn't respond, Jasmine didn't speak either. After years of working together, she knew his temperament inside and out. It wasn't that she was afraid of him getting angry, but after a few minutes of silence, someone had to break it. Have you ever thought about leaving? Asher asked, his voice gentle. There's no future in being the secretary to a good-for-nothing like me. Jasmine's body tensed, her hands freezing on his shoulders. Her full, red lips trembled. Mr. Vance, are you firing me? Asher took a deep breath and shook his head. No, I just think it's a waste of your talent. You have a better future, a brighter path ahead of you. He continued, you're still young. You could build your own empire in this city. I was thinking, when my mother first hired you at such a high salary, you must have been frustrated. You were so brilliant. Why would you take a job as a secretary? You were number one in your class, with major corporations fighting over you. But you needed the money because of your family situation, so you came here. You eventually reconciled yourself to it, deciding to stay temporarily to build connections and gain experience. It was all a stepping stone for your own future venture. At first, you were so careful, terrified of being fired. Then you got bolder, because you assumed I'd eventually replace you with someone prettier, more capable. After all, I was the playboy on the front page of every tabloid. He paused, a self-deprecating smile on his face. You thought it was only natural that I'd switch secretaries. Enough. That's enough, Jasmine whispered, her eyes turning red. Asher paused. Jasmine pulled her hands back, her body trembling slightly as she sniffled. Mr. Vance, what are you trying to say? You want to fire me? Is that it? You don't have to do it like this. Just send me a termination letter. You don't even have to write anything in it. I'll leave. Asher stood up, a wry smile on his face. Jasmine, you've misunderstood me. Haven't I? She said, wiping a tear from her eye. After years of working side by side, even a dog would have developed an attachment. I just think you have incredible talent and ability, Asher explained earnestly. I'm thinking about your future, your long-term plans. Will you fire me? Jasmine asked, looking him straight in the eye. Asher shook his head. Unless you resign, you could be my secretary for life. Seeing her looking like a sad, abandoned kitten, helpless, pitiful, in need of a hug, he added another line. Besides, I'm not an idiot. Why would I let a brilliant, capable, beautiful secretary just walk away? At that, Jasmine's tears turned to laughter, a tiny bubble even forming from her nose. Don't look, she cried, quickly turning away, mortified. She ran to grab a tissue, dabbing at her face. Asher smiled and turned his back to give her some privacy. Girls were sensitive about their appearance. No one wanted to be seen at their most vulnerable. Okay, Mr. Vance, you can turn around now, Jasmine said, her voice still a little resentful. Asher turned. When I get old and I'm not pretty anymore, will you fire me then? She asked, her eyes still watery. Asher met her gaze and said, word by word, no. We can sign a lifetime contract right now. The penalty for breach of contract will be 100 times your salary. Jasmine shook her head, a stunning smile gracing her face. I never trust what's written in black and white. I only trust people's actions. She wasn't one of the main heroines, but her beauty and figure were only a step below theirs. Out in the world, she was a goddess men would fight wars over. To marry a wife so virtuous, capable, and understanding, and then just get to be a hands-off husband, it was the dream of countless men. Asher smiled. Fine. If you want to remain a secretary, you can. He paused. However, I have a small company. What? Mr. Vance, are you still trying to get rid of me? No, just listen. I just started a small company. I have the people, and the projects have a lot of potential. The only thing missing is a general manager / consultant. I was hoping you could help out, spare some time to guide them. Can I say no? No. You have to. Oh, then what about my secretarial position? That's simple. You can continue being my secretary while also being a consultant. It won't take up much of your time. With the matter settled, Jasmine reluctantly agreed. She didn't know exactly what the job entailed, but she had made a promise to Asher, and she would see it through. Asher picked up his phone, made a quick call to the person in charge, and then gave the number to Jasmine. He spent a few minutes explaining the situation. Jasmine stared at the number she had saved in her phone, a wry smile on her face. Mr. Vance, you're still trying to push me into starting my own business. It's a consultant position, Asher corrected. Just think of it as a side gig. Jasmine gave him a look that screamed, yeah, right? Asher Vance's words were as trustworthy as a fox in a henhouse. She didn't even know who the general manager was, so how could she be a consultant? And even if she did, the authority Asher was granting her was greater than any CEO's. To put it simply, the entire company would run on her word alone, even the board of directors. Wait, the board. A thought struck her. How many shareholders are there? She asked instinctively. Asher gave her a surprised look. That little company, Apex Financial, is something I founded recently. I own 100% of the equity. There are no other shareholders. I see. Jasmine blinked, the pieces clicking into place. She understood. She understood her boss's ambition. Vance Corporation was a behemoth, home to countless geniuses and experts from around the world. Even without her, there would be another Jane or Jennifer to take her place. Asher wanted a stage where he could truly build something from the ground up without restrictions. Any success he had within Vance Corp would be met with whispers and snide remarks, that he was just standing on the shoulders of giants, that a pig could fly in a hurricane, that anyone could succeed with that kind of backing. But a company he built himself? That was different. The more Jasmine thought about it, the brighter her eyes became. Her boss was done being a complacent heir. He was going to build his own empire. It might be nothing compared to the Vance family fortune, but it was a step. In that moment, Jasmine was overcome with emotion. The way she looked at Asher changed completely. Mr. Vance has grown up. A whirlwind of thoughts raced through her mind. She didn't know if anyone else was moved, but she had certainly moved herself. If Asher was going to be King Arthur, then she would be his Merlin. Asher, oblivious to Jasmine's inner monologue, just smiled and patted her on the shoulder. I have high hopes for you. As a reward for your hard work, 50% of the company's shares will be yours. Don't even think about refusing. You've earned it. This return is proportional to your contribution. Jasmine's mouth opened, but no words came out, as if something was caught in her throat. After a long moment, she finally managed to speak, her voice a little dry. Mr. Vance, what's the initial registered capital for Apex Financial? She wasn't being greedy. She was just curious. Even if he didn't tell her, she'd find out when she took over. Asking now was just to get a baseline. Asher thought for a moment. Not much. About 20 million, I think. What? Jasmine's mouth fell open, forming a perfect O. Not much. Come on, people, listen to this. Is that something a human being should say? How can those words even come out of your mouth? Oh, right. He was Asher Vance of Vance Corporation, the Prince of New York City, the former national husband. Never mind then. Sorry to interrupt. The joys and sorrows of people are not universal. Some are born in Rome, while others are born as cattle. How can you even compare? That's the money I was saving up for a new car, Asher said, his face dead serious, as if he were telling the absolute truth. Anyone who didn't know him would think he had just bet his entire life savings. You have to run this company well for me. Whether I can get a new car in the next few years is all up to you. I will not disappoint you, Mr. Vance, Jasmine declared with renewed vigor. Their eyes met. After a moment, Asher finally broke the silence. You're messing with me again, Jasmine. Whatever. I'm heading out now, Mr. Vance, she said, sticking her tongue out playfully like a little girl. She turned and practically skipped out of the office on her high heels. Her heart was beating a mile a minute. If she stayed in there for one more second, she was afraid she might lose control. Asher was already devastatingly handsome, a heartthrob for all ages. But for some reason, marriage had only amplified his charm. Jasmine was terrified she wouldn't be able to stop herself from transforming from Merlin into a usurper. One day, throwing an arm around Asher's shoulders and telling his wife, Scarlett, don't worry about your husband. I'll take good care of him. The thought was too thrilling. No, wait, too shameful. The mental image was too much to handle. Slam. The door closed, leaving Asher alone in his office. A moment later, he chuckled. Her reaction was pretty fun. Sending Jasmine over to Apex Financial was a gift. In 2 lifetimes, she had been nothing but diligent and dedicated, allowing him to be a carefree boss for over a decade. She deserved it. Even without her there, Asher had already laid out the general strategy. As long as they followed his roadmap, Apex Financial's market value would reach at least $5 billion within 5 years. And that was without relying on any of his connections. As a regressor who had returned from the future with foresight and a certain amount of wealth, he could do whatever he wanted. It was like going back 20 years to a time before the housing market exploded with $100,000 in disposable cash. You could become a king. Back when downtown real estate was just a few $100s a square foot, you could buy up everything and become a billionaire later. Making money was just that simple. Asher glanced at his watch. It was almost noon. Lunchtime. Where should I eat today? Someone once said that if people don't eat, they die. They also said that if you can't decide what to eat, just wait until it's time to eat and then figure it out. When the hell did I say that? When the time came, Asher left his office and headed downstairs. Instead of taking the executive elevator, he decided to squeeze in with the regular employees. It wasn't some strange fetish or psychological quirk. It was the simple thought that if you knew you only had a few days left to live, you should spend that time doing things that felt meaningful. He was used to the life of the ultra-rich. For his final days, Asher wanted to return to his roots. After all, before he transmigrated, he was just an ordinary person. If you let yourself drown in immense wealth, how could you possibly survive if you were ever to become normal again? It's easy to go from rags to riches, but nearly impossible to go from riches to rags. After everything he'd been through, Asher had a new perspective. Before he stepped into the elevator, the office workers were already buzzing with conversation. Did you guys hear? The movie Mr. Vance starred in with Lena and just broke $10 billion at the domestic box office. What's so surprising about that? Mr. Vance's acting is god tier. Seriously, it's insane. His looks crush all those pretty boy actors and TikTok stars. And his acting is Oscar level. Haha, I saw it. It was amazing. I'm telling you, Mr. Vance is walking the celebrity path just to leave celebrities with no path to walk. It's not just big here. I was on some international forums a few days ago, and you know what? The Agents is a massive hit overseas. It's getting rave reviews, especially in the West. That movie is exactly their cup of tea. It's great here too, you know, a female employee countered defensively. I think it's Mr. Vance's abs that are great, her friend teased, eliciting a wave of laughter. Just then, Asher walked up. The chatter immediately ceased. It wasn't because he was a harsh or strict boss. He wasn't. It was the classic teacher walking into the classroom during study hall effect. The teacher could be the nicest person in the world, but their sudden appearance would still send a jolt of panic through the students. What they see me on my phone, or eating snacks, or just daydreaming. What's everyone talking about? Did I come a bad time? Asher asked with a smile as warm as a spring breeze. Everyone froze for a second before a more outgoing employee broke the ice, and the floodgates opened. Mr. Vance, we were just talking about your movie. Mr. Vance, are you going to do another film with Lena in? You can't let that talent go to waste. Get out of here, does Mr. Vance look like he needs the money? Mr. Vance, can I get your autograph? My wife won't stop pestering me for one. My kid wants one too, but he's a boy, so I smacked him and told him to get his priorities straight. The autograph is for my wife. What's a kid need an autograph for? Is Spider-Man not cool anymore? That little brat. I still believe in heroes, and I believe Mr. Vance can make another great movie. A friend of mine was an extra on set, and she said Mr. Vance was so casual about it, like it was easier than a normal day at the office. The conversation swirled around him, a cacophony of voices. Asher just smiled and listened. He barely got a word in, but he didn't mind. He enjoyed the lively atmosphere. By the time the elevator reached the ground floor, everyone was so engrossed in the discussion they had completely forgotten to ask for autographs. Mr. Vance, it was so great to chat with you in the elevator. I never knew you were so funny and down-to-earth in person. You seem like you could do anything, Mr. Vance. You've changed so much. Man, I wonder when we'll get to talk with a boss like that again. Their sentiments were genuine, not faked. Asher could feel it. At the same time, he felt a little awkward. He had said less than 5 sentences from the moment he stepped into the moment he stepped out. But as long as his employees were happy, that was all that mattered. He waved goodbye and slid into his flashy red sports car. The green one had been relegated to a dusty corner of his garage. Once inside, he pulled out his phone and dialed a number from missed call. It had been too loud in the elevator to answer, and he hadn't wanted to kill the mood. Hello, Lena, and what's up? He asked with a smile. Lena's voice was buzzing with excitement. Our movie is a huge hit internationally. Director Lou went overseas a few days ago, and he said there's a strong chance it'll be nominated for Best Picture this year. And you, as the lead, have a very high probability of being nominated for a Best Actor Oscar. She paused, then added with a wry laugh, assuming no other movie this year is better than ours, of course. I see, Asher said. A moment of silence passed. When Lena didn't speak, Asher prompted her. Is there anything else besides the good news? Lena hesitated, biting her lip. I wanted to ask you out to dinner to celebrate, but never mind, since you're all ready. I can do that, Asher replied. Sensing her hesitation, he added, it's just dinner. My wife won't mind. Lena let out a relieved breath. That was exactly what Scarlett had told her, too. I've already booked a place. You just have to show up. All right, send me the address. I'm on my way. Asher smiled and hung up. He had a good impression of Lena, and both in this life and the last. The way she had helped him humiliate Leo Flynn during the movie production was masterfully done. He could still picture the glorious image of the crooked-mouthed Dragon King's world crashing down around him. Besides, he wanted to make amends for all the heroine's sacrifices. That way, he would owe no one in this world anything. It was a high-end French restaurant, designed for romance. The ambience here is nice, isn't it? Lena said, a hint of pride in her voice. She rarely went to places like this. A friend had recommended it, praising the food and the intimate setting, perfect for conversation. Clearly, Lena had misunderstood the implication. As they say, a woman in love has the IQ of a houseplant. Asher's mouth twitched, but he nodded with a smile. It's very nice. See, receiving his approval, Lena's mood brightened, and she launched into a lively conversation. They were in a private VIP room, surrounded by fine wine, steak, French oysters, escargots, and foie gras. The table was a feast for the eyes. Lena didn't know Asher's preferences, so she had ordered a little of everything. It wasn't like she'd ordered anything bizarre. Besides, they could always pack up the leftovers. Have you been filming recently? Asher asked casually as he sliced into his steak. Lena elegantly took a sip of red wine and shook her head. After our movie blew up, I got a lot of offers from major studios, but I turned them all down. I'm just not in the right headspace lately. Asher nodded in understanding. A single film had grossed over $10 billion. An A-lister like Lena wasn't on a buyout contract. She got a percentage. The more the movie earned, the more she received. One movie could set her up for a couple of years, though not for life. She had her own media company to run and a lot of mouths to feed. Asher also received a percentage. In fact, before filming even began, director Vic Liu had given him a deal that was double Lena's. Anyone could see that Liu was a shrewd businessman. He knew the difference between a single meal and a lifetime of feasts. Aligning with the Vance family was a guaranteed win. Some of the initial investors had grumbled, thinking the payout was too generous. He doesn't even need the money. What are you doing, Liu? What's left for us? But then the movie became a global phenomenon. Asher's natural star power, combined with his Oscar-worthy performance, made his fee seem like a bargain. In fact, it was Liu and the investors who had made a killing. They were left eating their words, completely won over by Liu's foresight. When it came to casting male leads, you could always trust director Liu's killer instinct. This time, he had hit the jackpot. Of course, the billion-dollar payout was just pocket change for Asher, money he barely thought about. You have to rest well to have more energy for work, Asher said with a smile, raising his wine glass. Sharpen the axe before you chop the wood. Lena raised her glass to meet his. She speared a piece of foie gras with her fork. Today's foie gras was fragrant and rich. She closed her eyes in satisfaction. Not being able to hear Asher's thoughts was a bit of a downer, but the delicious food filled the void in her heart. Even though I'm not planning on filming for a while, I still need to write new songs, she said with a wry smile. But it's hard. I'm completely out of ideas. Lena was a superstar, yes. But beyond her superb acting, she was also a talented songwriter and singer. At her peak, every song she released was a smash hit. Now, not so much. At least, not compared to her former glory. She still easily crushed her competition. What's so hard about that? Just ask me, Asher said, pausing with his fork mid-air. Lena shot him a disbelieving look. Writing a song isn't like acting. There are so many factors to consider. It's all the same to me, Asher said, taking a bite of his steak. It was delicious, though not as good as his own cooking. But there was a certain pleasure in eating food you didn't have to prepare yourself. As for songwriting, he wasn't bragging. Although this world was similar to his previous one, with many popular songs existing in some form, not everything was the same. There were still some gems that hadn't been discovered here. And as a regressor who had lived an extra life, Asher had heard the hit songs that were yet to be released in this timeline. Plus, thanks to the superpowered mental acuity the system had granted him, supposedly to prevent him from breaking down under the pressure of the plot, he had a perfect memory. Lena blinked. An expert actor and a creative songwriter? Could he be any more ridiculous? You're not messing with me, are you? Asher glanced at her. Do I look like I have that much time to waste? You said it. Not me, Lena replied with a playful smile. She quickly pulled a small notepad and a pen from her purse, which she always carried to jot down sudden inspirations. Anyone can write a song. A 3-year-old can do it. But writing a good song, that's not something just anyone can do. She slid the notepad and pen across the table to him. She was right. Forget 3-year-olds. Even a 1-year-old could babble out of tune. But it would be a self-indulgent mess that no one else could understand. Asher looked at her with a confident smile. I only know how to write hit songs. I can't write anything else. The sheer audacity. Lena had never met such a brazenly arrogant person in her life. All right then, I'll be waiting, she said, biting her glossy red lip, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. She knew how difficult songwriting was. It wasn't just lyrics, it was melody, rhythm, 100 different things. Even she, a seasoned professional, couldn't guarantee a hit on demand. And Asher dared to make such a bold claim. Asher wiped his hands with a napkin, flipped to a blank page in the notebook, and picked up the pen. Just as he was about to write, he paused. Do you have any requirements for the song's content? Lena, who had been watching his every move, was completely floored. Are you kidding me? Requirements? What kind of ridiculous question was that? Whatever you like, Lena said, her lips twitching. She was just trying not to laugh. It would be a miracle if he could even write a coherent sentence. She wasn't about to start nitpicking. Besides, she knew Asher. It was always best to leave yourself an out. She had steeled herself. She was a professionally trained actress, after all. No matter how hilariously bad the song he wrote was, she would not laugh in his face. Unless she absolutely couldn't hold it in. That wouldn't be her fault, right? Okay, I'll just write whatever then, Asher said with a nod. He put pen to paper, and the words flowed as if from a divine source. It was easy when you already had the finished product in your head. He remembered being bored in middle school and anonymously posting a song he'd written online. It went viral instantly. He'd released a few more after that, and in that era, his songs were considered cutting edge, miles ahead of the competition. Lena's eyes widened. Asher wasn't even blinking. Hadn't he just said he was going to write it on the spot? Even a genius needed time to think, right? He didn't even pause. Or had he already composed it before he even got here? Less than 2 minutes later, Asher stopped, capped the pen, and set it down. You're done? Lena asked, her voice filled with disbelief. Asher nodded, handing the notepad back to her. Yep, finished. Lena took it, her mind too boggled to even look at the contents. She just stared at him, dumbfounded. Could you be any more half-assed? Even if you didn't want to write it, you could have at least pretended to try. It was so fast, it was insulting. She was struggling to keep a straight face. Asher, meanwhile, went back to eating his steak. If she didn't ask, he wasn't going to say anything. Finally, she couldn't take it anymore. You wrote this yourself, right? Asher thought for a moment. This particular song didn't exist in this world yet, since the original author would never know, by all rights, that made him the original author. The logic was flawless. Yes, he replied. He could have written a guaranteed chart topper, but since Lena hadn't given him any guidelines, he just grabbed one of the lower-ranked songs from his mental library. That didn't mean it was a bad song. It just wasn't one of the absolute titans in his collection. But it would be a hit. That was all that mattered. Lena had a million sarcastic remarks ready, but she couldn't get a single one out. She forced herself to look down at the notepad. Huh, your handwriting is nice. That was her first impression. The next second, she was stunned. She had assumed he'd just scribbled down some lyrics. But he had notated the entire melody, every chord, every rest. This wasn't a draft. It was a complete, finished song. Did you study music? She asked, looking up at him. I was interested as a kid, so I played around with it a bit, Asher said casually. You should read the lyrics. With his family's resources, if he showed the slightest interest in anything, Lawrence and Eleanor would have hired the best tutors in the world. It wasn't surprising. Lena refocused and began to read seriously. After a long while, she looked back at Asher. There's definitely something to this song, she admitted. But at this level, I don't believe it could become a smash hit overnight. She paused, her expression serious. It might not even become a minor hit. When it came to music, no one knew better than Lena and the reigning queen of pop. She could see the potential, but her years of experience told her that a hit song wasn't just about what the creator thought. There were countless other factors. Did it resonate with the current cultural moment? Would the public embrace it? A hit from 10 years ago might sound dated today, and a modern hit might have flopped in the past. Nothing was certain. Asher smiled. What do you think makes a song connect with the public? Lena thought for a moment. Something that other people can easily hum a few lines of. Clap, clap, clap. Asher applauded, as expected of a queen. You hit the nail on the head. Lena rolled her eyes. Please, in front of the great Asher Vance. How could I dare call myself a queen? Women held grudges, and Lena was no exception. If he was going to flatter her, she was going to return the favor with interest. Asher just laughed, unbothered. So would you say my song is easy to sing? Lena mentally reviewed the lyrics and melody. She nodded. Yes, there you go then. But, all right, how about this? Let's make a bet, Asher said, waving his hand. It was pointless to argue when their perspectives were so different. It was like trying to explain calculus to a first grader. What kind of bet? Lena asked, intrigued. Asher looked at her. Let's bet on whether this song becomes a hit. And if it doesn't, the pop queen and movie star was getting excited. I'll owe you one favor, Asher said. Anything? Lena asked, her eyes sparkling. Asher took a sip of wine. Anything? Yes. Lena was so excited she wanted to jump up and shout. Asher smirked. And what if you lose? Same conditions, Lena said without hesitation. Asher shook his head. Nope, that was a terrible deal for him. Either way, Lena came out ahead. Lena blinked. Then what do you want? A mischievous glint appeared in Asher's eyes. If you lose, he said simply, you have to meow like a cat and call me daddy. It was a simple request. It didn't cost money, and it wasn't lecherous. He was giving her a hit song for free, and all he wanted in return was a little humiliation. If any of the countless B-list starlets knew about this deal, they would be climbing over each other for the chance. They'd call him daddy until their throats were raw. Deal. Lena agreed without a second thought. It was a joke. Could she, the reigning queen of pop, possibly lose? To a song he'd improvised on the spot? Not a chance. That favor from Asher Vance was as good as hers. Are you sure we don't need to go to my company's recording studio? Lena asked from the passenger seat. Asher thought for a moment, but ultimately shook his head. It's too far. It would be a hassle for you to come all the way back to get your car. Lena pouted. He had a good point, and she couldn't argue with it. She had been hoping to bring him to her studio. It was a professional setup with top-tier equipment and staff. Plus, she had a few other, less professional, ideas in mind. But Asher's refusal was so direct, so final. Oh well. This was a bet she was going to win, hands down. Scarlett Jo herself could intervene, and it wouldn't change a thing. She was that confident. Why didn't they go to Lena's studio? Because Asher had his own, Aura Sound Studios. It was one of his private businesses, something he'd set up with his allowance back when he was dabbling in music. The equipment was state-of-the-art, all imported, the best money could buy. It was updated almost every year. A waste of money, you say? Not all. Even when Asher wasn't using it, the studio was operational. Many bands loved to record there, though none of them knew that the mysterious owner was Asher Vance. They pulled up to the Sterling building in Soho, a prime piece of real estate where every square foot was worth a fortune. You couldn't just set up shop here without serious capital and connections. After parking the car, Asher led Lena inside. The security guards recognized him immediately and waved him through. Lena was wearing a mask and sunglasses, so they didn't recognize her, but seeing Asher was enough. It was the middle of the workday, so the elevator was empty. You seem to know your way around here, Lena remarked. A curious arch to her eyebrow. Of course, Asher said with a casual smile. I'll in the studio. Lena froze. She hadn't asked where they were going, assuming he just picked a random place. But of course he hadn't. He was Asher Vance. He had his own. Everything suddenly made sense. What's your studio called? She asked, recovering with a playful tease. Maybe we're competitors. Asher just smiled mysteriously. You'll see when we get there. Lena pouted. They reached the 17th floor. Asher led her to a set of large double doors. When Lena saw the name etched on the glass, her jaw dropped behind her mask. No way, she breathed. You own this place? Asher just smiled at her. Why? Is it famous? He hadn't been here in ages. He'd basically let it run itself. He'd thrown money at it to build its reputation, then hired professionals to manage it. The profits from each year were used to fund the next round of equipment upgrades. It was the ultimate expression of money makes money. Lena shot him a sideways glance. I'm starting to doubt you're actually the owner. Aura Studios is a big name in the industry. The equipment, the environment, it's all top-notch. It's on par with my company's studio. That was high praise. Lena's company was a major player, and their recording facilities were legendary. For Asher's place to be in the same league was impressive, even if he didn't seem to know or care. Let's go in, he said, pushing the door open. The interior was spacious and lavishly decorated. Professionals of every stripe were milling about, and several bands were already in line, waiting for their reserve sessions. A young woman with purple hair and a trendy outfit hurried over. Hello, sir, ma'am. Do you have an appointment? Get your manager, Asher told her with a polite smile. The woman stared, momentarily starstruck. She had never seen a man that handsome in her life. After a few seconds, recognition dawned. All right away, Mr. Vance. It was Asher Vance, the national husband. Well, former national husband. He had a wife now. The girl didn't linger, scurrying off to an office in the back. A moment later, a portly man in a suit came rushing out, practically tripping over himself. Mr. Vance, he stammered, his face pale with panic. He hadn't done anything wrong, but a surprise inspection from the big boss was never a good feeling. It was like your teacher suddenly showing up during study hall, right after you'd started a ranked match on your phone. I need to use a recording booth, Asher said, cutting to the chase. The manager visibly relaxed. Of course. I'll arrange it for you immediately. He didn't even dare to look at the woman standing next to Asher. Some of the other bands grumbled at being cut in line, but when they realized it was Asher Vance, the owner of the studio, their frowns turned into beaming smiles. This was a celebrity, and when the manager mentioned he was here to record a song, their interest was piqued. But just as quickly, the manager herded them all into a lounge and locked the door. Asher's bet with Lena stipulated no media hype or leveraging his existing fame. If these people spread the word, the song would be a hit before it was even released. It had to go viral on its own merit. In the recording booth, the sound engineers were on edge. They were recording for the boss himself. They had to be perfect. They also knew Asher had written the song. They made a pact. No matter what, they would not laugh. Pinch their thighs, bite their tongues, whatever it took. Laughing meant getting fired. Asher could read their minds. These weren't the original staff he'd hired. The employees had turned over several times. He didn't mind. He gave them his instructions, and they began recording. Gradually, the engineers found themselves getting into it. The song was catchy, relatable. There was nothing to laugh at. Lena stood to the side, a silent observer. She had taken off her sunglasses, but kept her mask on. She didn't want anyone to get the wrong idea and start rumors about Asher cheating on his wife. By 7 in the evening, the song was finished. With the recording complete, the portly manager, a seasoned veteran of customer service, began showering them with gifts and merchandise. If Asher hadn't stopped him, he probably would have given them the entire studio. No one knew the masked woman was the one and only Lena, and if they had, they would have been ecstatic, plastering her name all over their marketing materials. But alas, they were oblivious. Back in the parking garage, Asher sent the song file to Lena. "Just create a new account and upload it for me," he said. "If it's too much trouble, you can have someone on your team do it." It wasn't that he couldn't do it himself, but he couldn't be bothered. Besides, if he did it, Lena might accuse him of buying traffic if he won. He needed to win this cleanly, leaving her with no room for doubt. "All right," Lena agreed with a smile. She looked out at the darkening sky. "Let's get some dinner." This time, Asher shook his head. "Can't. I have to eat at home." Someone was waiting for him. Lena paused, then gave a small, self-conscious laugh. "Oh, right. You have a wife." "My bad." Asher just waved it off and started the engine. The sports car roared to life, and he sped back toward the French restaurant to drop her off. On the way, Lena had already instructed her assistant to create the new accounts. Entrusting it to anyone else? No way. She had to handle this personally. If she were releasing her own song, there would be a whole promotional campaign, teasers, and hype building. But this was different. The assistant set up the accounts and sent her the login info. Lena chose the artist name Enigma. Using their real names was out of the question, but a little subtlety was fine. Soon, the song was uploaded to all major music platforms. Lena watched the dashboard for a few minutes. Nothing. Not a single play. It was to be expected. In a current digital age, tens of thousands of songs were released every day. Without a promotional push, even a masterpiece would sink without a trace. Even a superstar like her would have a disastrous flop if she released a song under a new name without any marketing. No one would know who she was. The conditions are too harsh. This isn't fair, Lena mused to herself. She decided to give him a tiny, tiny boost. She called her assistant. "Yes, miss. And? You need me to buy some promotional traffic for a friend's new song? Okay, got it. What's that? Not too much. How much exactly? Right? No more than $100 per platform. Okay, I understand." After hanging up, Lena let out a breath and closed the tablet in front of her. $100 in ad spend was nothing. It was a drop in the ocean. She'd seen terrible, soulless songs go viral with millions in promotional funding. $100 was basically leaving it up to fate. Hee, you're gonna lose for sure, Asher, Lena chuckled to herself. The feeling of a guaranteed victory was intoxicating. She had to think carefully about what she would ask for with her one favor. 15 minutes later, to be absolutely certain, she opened the tablet again and checked the stats. Great. The play count was still in the single digits. This was in the bag. She closed the tablet, tossed it onto the passenger seat, and drove away. What Lena didn't know was that it had only been 3 minutes since her assistant had actually purchased the ad traffic. These things take time to process. And at that very moment, across the city, a food blogger was live streaming from his popular late-night noodle truck to an audience of over 1,000 people. He hit the random shuffle button on a music playlist. A new song started playing. 10 years drifted in this city's cold embrace. Sometimes I miss the girl I left in that old place. The skylines changed, and so have we, it seems, but the Hudson River still connects our broken dreams. The raw, resonant lyrics, paired with a deep, smoky voice, told the story of a working man's lonely struggle. The blogger, who had been putting on a smile for his stream, suddenly froze, the spatula in his hand clattering against the wok. His whole body trembled, and his nose began to sting. What is this song? It was speaking directly to his soul. It wasn't just him. In the live stream chat, the constant stream of comments slowed to a halt. The viewers were captivated, lost in the melancholic melody. In any world, there are the rich and the poor. The rich are few. The working class is the vast majority. This song had found them. It had hit the mark. Holy crap. This song hits way too close to home. Reminds me of when I was younger, working the line at the plant. Oh, right. And my girlfriend was working there with me. Dude in the comment above is the devil. What kind of woman is willing to work a factory line with you? I'm 3 beers deep and still don't get where I went wrong. I'm just sitting here, staring at my Mercedes keys, trying to comprehend this level of suffering. Damn. This song is just too good. I don't have a girlfriend yet, but I remember my first crush. If you've never had a girlfriend, how do you have a first crush? Bro, ever heard of a one-sided crush? Ah, got it. Another one snapped. Someone call his family to come get him. Bunch of idiots. Who cares about your sob stories? Just drop the song title. Yo, streamer, what's the track name? Anyone who plays a banger and doesn't name it has a Wi-Fi signal that constantly drops out. Heh, the handsome people have already Shazammed it. Only the ugly ones are still asking. What's the name? If you don't tell us, may all your charging cables be frayed. Hudson River Blues, just dropped by an artist named Enigma. Wow, that's a weird name. Why not just call yourself the Riddler or Anonymous? Who knows? Already listened, saved, and followed. This guy's got a new fan. The live stream chat was an explosion of activity. And so, the song spread from 1 to 10, from 10 to 100, from 100 to 1,000. The $1,000 Asher had spent on promotion quickly ignited a fire. The mechanics were similar on every platform. Once you bought the initial traffic, your content was pushed into a test pool. If, say, more than 50 out of 100 people listened to the whole song, it would be bumped up to a pool of 1,000 listeners. The algorithm would then push it to 1,000 people currently listening to music in that same time block, and so on and so on. The requirements grew steeper and more ruthless with each tier. Very few songs could survive the climb to the top. Talent, after all, was the ultimate gatekeeper. Anyone without it who tried to game the system would lose their shirt. Even a decent song with some real talent behind, it would quickly be buried by the next one. At the end of the day, it came down to money. You spend 1,000, someone else spends 10,000 or 1,000,000. How do you compete? Unless, of course, the song itself had the raw, undeniable power to break through on its own. Hudson River Blues was one of those songs. As mentioned before, the population of this novel's world was 3 times that of the real world, its planet proportionally larger. But in any world, wealth and society form a pyramid. The base, the working class, is always the vast majority. It's like a hive of bees or a colony of ants. Not every bee can be a queen, nor every ant. Most are just drones, toiling away day after day. The song, whether in its lyrics or its melody, wasn't artistically complex, but it was raw, honest, and painfully easy to understand. It resonated, tapping into a shared experience that was instantly familiar. And that was enough. Rumor had it that a song once produced for less than $20 had earned its creator over $10 million after going viral on TikTok. For most ordinary people, that was a one-way ticket to the stratosphere. $10 million. A sum most couldn't even dream of. Midnight. The Pinnacle at Central Park South, 17th floor. Lena emerged from her bathroom, fresh from a long soak, her face covered in a volcanic clay mask. She gently patted her cheeks. Asher's volcanic clay skincare line is amazing. My skin has never felt better. Feeling beautiful, she returned to her bedroom and carried her laptop over to the bed. She scrolled through the news headlines, found nothing of interest, and killed some more time online. Just as she was about to go to sleep, she remembered her bet with Asher. Fine, one last look, she thought with a smirk. It'll help me sleep soundly all night. Lena was certain she had already won by a landslide, but seeing the proof would improve her sleep quality, helping her achieve maximum efficiency. She would become a true high-quality woman of the modern age. Click. Lena opened the analytics webpage. Her eyes fell on the data, and then she froze. Winky face, her smug, cartoonish expression shattered, the color draining from her face as if it had turned to black and white newsprint. She slammed the escape key. This isn't real, Lena. You're seeing things. You just opened the page wrong, she told herself, her voice a loud whisper in the silent room. She took a deep breath, composed herself, and reopened the browser. Click. This time, she blinked hard, staring at the screen. She checked again, and again. No matter how many times she looked, the account ID was correct. It was definitely the Enigma account, not her official one. This time, Lena completely lost her composure. The mask on her face cracked and fell onto her silk sheets. She was too stunned to even speak. This was impossible. Oh, God. What was she seeing? The numbers had changed. They had changed into something utterly ludicrous. The back-end analytics showed cumulative plays in the tens of millions. Likes and saves had surpassed 1 million. The comments section had exploded past 100,000. And with every refresh, the numbers underwent a seismic shift, growing larger and larger. It was an overnight sensation. BZZZZT. Her phone vibrating on the nightstand jolted her from her stupor. She picked it up, her hand still trembling. It was her assistant. There were over a dozen missed calls. The poor girl must be frantic. The moment Lena answered, before she could even say a word, her assistant's ecstatic voice burst through the speaker. Lena, oh my God, Lena, the song is a hit. It's a massive hit. Who sang it? Who wrote the lyrics? Have you signed him yet? The assistant had been with Lena since the beginning of her career, so she had earned the right to be so direct. And besides, this was about the company's bottom line. A viral hit could bring in a small fortune for the studio. A few million was nothing to sneeze at. Then, later, they could have the artist do the talk show circuit, appear on a few reality shows. It would be an endless stream of revenue. No matter how you looked at it, it was a win. As for how the assistant found out, she was the one who had created the account under Lena's direction. The bizarre artist name, Enigma, had been her idea too. If someone in a group chat hadn't pinged her that a song by an artist with that ridiculously weird name was blowing up, she never would have put 2 and 2 together so quickly, which is why she sounded so completely, utterly unglued right now. Sign. Lena's expression was a kaleidoscope of emotions. Finally, she couldn't hold it in any longer and screamed, losing all semblance of her usual composure. Sign him? I haven't signed jack shit. Her assistant on the other end. Now, she was just as stunned as Lena. She was completely baffled by Lena's explosive reaction. What was going on? Why did she sound like she'd just been hit by a freight train? The assistant couldn't figure it out. From the sound of it, you'd think the mystery singer had just dumped her. But she couldn't say that out loud. The assistant didn't dare ask, didn't dare speak, didn't dare even look. Not that she could see anything anyway. All she could do was wait patiently for Lena to explain. After a long moment of stunned silence, the A-list superstar finally pulled herself together. Lena cleared her throat. I know the singer. Don't worry about it. I've got it under control. Okay, the assistant could only say. If the boss said she had it handled, then there was nothing more for her to do. After hanging up, Lena tossed her phone aside, buried her face in a pillow, and let out a series of muffled whimpers. Oh, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? I lost. She had become a broken record, repeating the words over and over, her cheeks burning so hot they felt like they could draw blood. She just wanted to check the numbers for a little ego boost before a good night's sleep. Who knew the universe would decide to play such a cruel joke on her? Now, she wouldn't be sleeping a wink. Thinking back on the bet, Lena, a seasoned superstar who prided herself on both beauty and talent, had recognized that Asher's Hudson River Blues was something special. But predicting it would go viral? That was a matter of perspective and luck. Lena's rarefied life, spent in penthouses and exclusive studios, had blinded her to the soul of the song, the part that spoke directly to the vast population of blue-collar workers. She wasn't alone. Many famous artists lived in that same bubble. It was only after Hudson River Blues exploded that a legion of Monday morning quarterbacks emerged, dissecting its success. Before it happened, no one could have possibly imagined it. It was, to put it mildly, a devastating blow to her pride. Meanwhile, while some tossed and turned, others slept soundly. Asher, for example, slept like a baby. Hudson River Blues had long since passed the ultimate test of public opinion in his previous life. Its success was just a matter of time. And now, less than 7 hours after its release, it had already captured the attention of major influencers. There was money to be made, and only a fool would pass it up. The content creators on TikTok were especially instrumental. They'd create a sentimental short video and slap the song on as the background music. For instance, a guy is working on an assembly line when his supervisor slaps the parts out of his hand. Johnson, your numbers have been crap all week. You don't deserve to work on this line anymore. Get out. You're fired. Johnson, fine by me. I'm done with this dead-end job anyway. He dramatically throws his work gloves on the floor, grabs his lunchbox, and walks out. As the BGM kicks in, 10 years drifting down the Hudson, a ghost in this city's lights. The video would flash to a shot of a beautiful girlfriend, someone else's girlfriend, of course. Johnson couldn't afford to date someone that pretty, and a girl that pretty wouldn't look twice at him anyway. A wave of viral videos like this, some comedic, some serious, some purely sentimental, flooded the internet. No matter the tone, they all drove traffic to the song. The next morning, on Spotify, Apple Music, and YouTube Music, Hudson River Blues had stormed into the top 3 on all major charts. A few mega superstars even reposted the track with their own thoughts, basically just saying it was a great song. Why not ride the wave? There was no shame in it. If you were too cool or too proud to jump on the trend, someone else would. When the wind is blowing this hard, even a pig can fly. The next morning, a long-suffering Asher Vance was dragged out of bed to cook breakfast. Ever since he'd accidentally revealed his talent for cooking, Eleanor and Lawrence had promptly given the family chef the week off and assigned all culinary duties to him. Even Eleanor, who enjoyed cooking, had hung up her apron. For over 20 years, they'd had no idea their own son was a master chef. If they didn't take advantage of it now, who knew when they'd get another chance? Thus, Asher had become the official family cook. Lawrence was fully on board, and after Chloe had a taste of his cooking, she'd been relentless. If she couldn't get one thing she wanted, she'd at least get the other. Between two options, she would always choose one. After a busy morning, Chef Vance picked up his phone from the counter and called his wife. "Hey, breakfast is ready. Tell my parents and Chloe to come down." He hung up, and a few moments later, the sound of footsteps echoed from upstairs. Quick as a flash, the entire family was seated at the table. Everyone was there except for the Dragon Queen, who was still out of town. Asher had prepared a lavish spread, and the family ate with gusto. Eleanor and Lawrence nearly came to blows over the last piece of a particularly exquisite dish. Asher, meanwhile, was scrolling through his phone, a smile playing on his lips. It wasn't because of the song's success, but because of the hilarious comments underneath it. That, and the image of Lena Ann's face, a mixture of indignation and defeat. Not only would she have to act like a kitten, she'd have to call him daddy. Just the thought of it was delicious. "What are you smiling about?" Scarlett asked, taking a bite of her food. Asher pointed to a comment on his screen. "This one's pretty funny. It's a dumb joke. Why don't scientists trust atoms?" "Why don't scientists trust atoms? What's so funny about that?" Scarlett asked, smiling along with him without understanding. Asher put on an exaggerated, theatrical expression. "Because they make up everything," he delivered with a flourish. What does that even ha? They make up everything. Ha ha. You're ridiculous. Ha. Scarlett wasn't laughing because the joke was particularly good, but because Asher's goofy, over-the-top performance was so infectious it made her laugh in spite of herself. All right, slow down. You're getting food everywhere," the she-devil said, pulling out a napkin to gently wipe a grain of rice from the corner of his mouth. Asher looked at her. "I've got something to do at noon, so I probably won't be back for lunch." Scarlett's face lit up. "Really?" Asher's mouth twitched. Why did she seem even more excited about him not coming home than he was? Did someone need their faucet fixed? Just kidding. After 2 lifetimes together, Asher knew the she-devil inside and out. In this world, the person who understood Scarlett Jo best was probably not herself, but him. The same went for the other heroines. "Do you need me spending money?" she asked. I don't think that's necessary. Is $1 million enough?" "That's a bit much, don't you think?" 500,000. A little less. 300,000. Still too much. 100,000. Final offer. Ahem, really it's fine. Whenever I go out, people treat me. I don't spend much. Excellent, Scarlett said with a satisfied nod. That's my good husband. The Dragon's Den is pretty much settled. You're second in command now. Under 1 person, but above 10,000, Cassandra Lee said, patting Freya Ross on the shoulder with an air of finality. Freya tilted her head in confusion. Isn't Nemesis the Dragon Queen? If I'm under 1 person, where does that put you, Cassie? Ahem. Let's not get bogged down in the details. Fine, under 2 people above 10,000, Cassie said, looking away to hide her embarrassment. Freya blinked, a flicker of disappointment in her eyes. These past few days, Cassie had barely touched her. There was plenty of flirtatious banter and the occasional handsy moment, but she never took it any further, never delved into a deeper exploration. It was driving Freya crazy. This isn't the Cassie I used to know, she thought. Where did my naughty, wonderful Cassie go? How am I supposed to fill the emptiness in my heart? Are you sure you can't stay a little longer? It's not just me. The other girls are dying to see you. When they heard you were back, they immediately started making their way from other states. Some even booked overnight flights from overseas. Freya's voice was laced with a plaintive tone, making Cassie feel like the worst kind of heartless player. Meeting Asher Vance ruins a woman for anyone else. It wasn't that Cassie didn't want it anymore. It was just that over the years, she'd done it all, seen it all. To put it bluntly, she was bored. Besides, the Cassie of today wanted to try something new. There were other emotional factors involved now. How many of the women Cassie took an interest in were mere ornaments? If they didn't have skills of their own, if they were only pretty faces, Cassie wouldn't have given them a second glance. They're coming all this way just to see me? Cassie asked with a knowing smile. Freya's cheeks puffed out. You know why we're like this today? You bear a great deal of responsibility, Cassie. Yes, yes, Cassie said with a grin, before her expression turned serious. I do have a responsibility. But Freya, have you ever thought about it? Freya was stunned. Thought about what? Cassie continued, her voice firm. I can't split myself in two. In my absence, you need to be ready to step up and be the big sister. That's why I've kept you by my side all these years. Do you understand? Her words were like a fiery pep talk from a CEO, trying to motivate the troops without offering a raise. A long-winded speech that might inspire an hour of hard work. But Cassie rarely gave such speeches. Coming from her, it was incredibly effective. Freya was momentarily speechless. After a long pause, she finally managed, Cassie, are you leaving us for good? No, of course not, Cassie denied instantly. Only an idiot would admit to that. Cassie was a woman with a strong possessive streak. The women she had touched, how could she ever let another man touch them? Sure, they might not be as stunning as the main heroines, but many of them weren't far off. Men were all the same. Rather than let them suffer at the hands of some man, it would be better to one day send them all to Asher. Yes, that's a good plan, she thought. But first, I need to wipe my own mouth clean. No need to rush. Freya, you need to think of it this way. I'm going back to the States to expand our operations. When heaven is about to confer a great responsibility on any person, it first exercises their mind with suffering. You are my designated successor. You must be ready to take charge. Cassie said, her tone dead serious. She couldn't let herself laugh. If she broke character, it would all be for nothing. She was counting on Freya to keep the troops in line. Freya was deeply moved. Her voice choked with emotion. Cassie, you can go back without any worries. I'll take care of everything here. As long as I, Freya Ross, am here, the Dragon's Den will be here. Cassie had no desire for her to make any dramatic, jinx-worthy declarations. She patted her shoulder again. Don't be so tense. Didn't I leave that bitch Ursula for you to use as a slave? She may be a prisoner now, but her skills are real. If she give you any trouble, you tell me. I'll have Nemesis come back and deal with her. Ursula Rome's power base had been shattered. In her current state, she was a tiger without teeth, her claws dulled. More importantly, she had been thoroughly beaten down by Anya and had lost all will to resist. She had practically begged Cassie to let her stay. With the Dragon's Den as her backer, she was protected. Over the years, Ursula had made plenty of enemies. If she lost that protection and tried to strike out on her own, she might have to sacrifice her body just to survive, with no guarantee of success. No matter how she looked at it, staying was the only logical choice. Freya nodded. Cassie gave her a few more instructions. If she ran into any problems, she could always contact her online. It was easy enough to stay in touch these days. Cassie felt a sudden urge to get out of there. If she waited any longer, the other women would arrive, and she wouldn't be able to handle all of them at once. Some of them were far more unruly than Freya. With the recent recruitment drive and the official integration of the Gao siblings, the Dragon's Den cybersecurity had been massively upgraded. Raina Gao had initially intended it to be a one-time job, but Cassie's offer had been too generous to refuse. A single meal versus a lifetime supply. Raina knew which was the better deal. Cassie grabbed her luggage and boarded her private jet. Freya stood on the tarmac, watching the departure of a generational lesbian queen. In that moment, her eyes were filled with a steely resolve. Her reflection mirrored that of a younger Cassie before she had met Asher Vance. Go back without worry, Cassie. I'm here, and I'm not alone. I will take care of our sisters. No, I will do better than you. The things you couldn't do, I will do. The promises you couldn't keep, I will fulfill. In that moment, the torch was passed. The new generation rises to surpass the old. In the American branch of the Dragon's Den, a new queen had just been crowned. Inside a private room in an elegant New York cafe. I honestly didn't think that song you sang would actually become such a massive hit. To be honest, your voice is incredibly captivating. Even my friends in the industry were full of praise. And then there's the song itself. You were right. It's a perfect track for the masses. The lyrics are so simple and relatable, Lena said, looking at Asher, her words deliberate. And Asher asked with a smile, taking a sip of his coffee. Lena blinked, her expression shifting slightly. Her tone became apologetic. I want to apologize for my behavior yesterday. You were right. The song really did blow up. Asher shook his head. You know, that's not what I'm talking about. Lena froze for a second. Then she saw Asher raise one hand into a fist near his cheek, the other slightly lower, mimicking a cat's pose. The memory hit her like a lightning bolt. Her eyelids started to twitch. First thing this morning, her assistant had sent her more exhilarating news. Hudson River Blues had skyrocketed to the top of the charts on every major music platform. Not only that, but it was the #1 trending background music on TikTok. Even though Asher wrote it, sang it, and produced the track, Lena couldn't help but feel a vicarious thrill, as if the hit song were her own. And when one is riding high, one tends to forget things, which is exactly what the A-list superstar had done, completely pushing the kitten calls daddy incident to the back of her mind. Lena could feel her cheeks flush. Can we change the terms? She pleaded softly. I'll agree to anything else. Nope, Asher replied with a cheerful, clean-cut finality. Lena bit her lip. She was a powerhouse actress and singer, an A-lister, a queen of her craft. When had she ever resorted to acting cute to win over fans? She had always crushed the competition with pure talent. Her public image was that of the unattainable ice queen, the woman you could never have. And now, Asher wanted her to act cute. For him, right in front of him. The shame was overwhelming. No, definitely not. Maybe next time, definitely next time. Seeing her hesitate, waffling back and forth, Asher's smile vanished. He picked up his jacket and made a show of getting up to leave. Well, if Missin doesn't honor her word, I guess we have nothing more to talk about. Writing a song for Lena was just a way to pass the time, not part of some grand scheme to conquer her. What a joke. He was a married man. Sure, the she-devil hadn't let him touch her lately, and he had respected that. But the dumb woman, on the other hand, was never quite so disciplined. Though after every encounter, she would invariably dissolve into a whimpering little kitten, perfectly embodying the phrase, all talk and no game. The she-devil was better than that. Anyway, back to the matter at hand. Wait, I'll do it. Lena's voice suddenly shot up. Asher paused, a half-smile playing on his lips as he looked back at her. You sure? He teased. Don't force yourself. Lena froze, staring at him suspiciously. You weren't actually going to leave, were you? You're the one who won't honor the bet. Is that my fault? Asher shrugged and turned back toward the door. This time, he really was about to leave. Lena could no longer afford to be coy. She grabbed his arm. Yes, I'll honor the bet. Asher had genuinely been ready to walk out. It took all of Lena's pleading to convince him to stay. Their current posture was rather intimate. If anyone saw them, jaws would drop. Although, if the she-devil found out, she'd probably just say, nice work. That's the man I chose. Asher returned to the sofa, ready to enjoy the show. This was a performance that Lena and's legions of fans and suitors would never see in their lifetime. Only he had that privilege. Lena stood there, taking a deep breath, a blush coloring her cheeks. She mimicked Asher's earlier pose, one hand raised in a delicate fist, the other held slightly lower. Then, from her lips came an adorable little meow. Meow. As a singer, and a superstar at that, Lena's voice was naturally exquisite. That single meow was so heart-meltingly cute, it could turn a person's bones to jelly. Asher felt a slight shiver run down his spine, but he quickly composed himself. After all, he wasn't an ordinary man. At home, the she-devil's aura was even more formidable than that of a main heroine like Lena. In terms of looks, they were equals, but when it came to sheer presence, the she-devil was in a league of her own, holding him completely in her thrall. What are you laughing at? Lena's face grew even redder as she met Asher's smiling eyes, the shame intensifying. Asher paused. I'm not laughing. You liar. You're totally smiling. Am I not even allowed to smile? No. Oh, okay. Then I won't smile. Asher's smile vanished, replaced by a stern, serious expression. He looked like a disapproving father watching his daughter perform some cringy anime dance. Let's not forget, Asher had the acting chops of an Oscar winner. Changing his expression was as easy for him as breathing. Just as Lena was starting to regain her composure, her eyes met Asher's deadpan stare, and she felt like she was about to have a complete breakdown. I didn't ask you to look at me like that. He was doing it on purpose. He was absolutely doing it on purpose. This jerk just wanted to see her squirm to satisfy some sick, twisted part of himself. The more the A-list actress thought about it, the more certain she became. She had guessed the beginning of his plan, but she hadn't guessed the end. The end was Asher dropping the act. His expression returned to normal, not smiling, but also not the disappointed father look of disgust. Now, Lena was out of excuses. Finally, under immense psychological pressure, she managed to get the words out. The sound was barely a whisper, almost inaudible, but she had said it. Her face was as red as a bonfire. She was an actress, wasn't she? What was so hard about saying a line? First, Asher was her contemporary, maybe even a little younger. Second, when she played roles that required a father figure, the actors were always in their 60s or 70s, or at least looked it. But with Asher, this was something else entirely. It left Lena feeling ashamed, annoyed, and utterly helpless. My heart is breaking. This is so humiliating. Asher just nodded, then casually stuck a finger in his ear. Not bad, not bad. I didn't hear a single word you said. Missin', have you lost the strength to speak? Lena? Duh. Lena was convinced Asher was deliberately tormenting her, but she couldn't find any concrete evidence. On second thought, her voice really had been too quiet. It was only natural that Asher wouldn't accept it. So, Lena shot him a pleading look, took another deep breath, and this time, spoke a little louder. Duh. It was a marginal improvement, but in Asher's view, it still didn't pass. Asher, straight face if you don't want to say it, then don't. Your voice is as quiet as a mosquito flapping its wings. If you're not going to honor your word, then I can be just as shameless about any bets we make in the future. He paused, then added with a solemn nod. Oh, and from now on, there will be no in the future. Lena's face flushed a deep crimson, her eyes a mix of shame and rage. She was so angry she lost all reason. Daddy, 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 she yelled, completely abandoning her carefully crafted image as a revered superstar. Lena stood with her hands on her hips, catching her breath, her eyebrows arched. How was that? Satisfied now? Asher smiled. Much better. Good girl. Asher, you are such an asshole. Lena's anger spiked again. She snatched a small, square, throw pillow from the sofa and hurled it at him with all her might. The full force of the A-list superstar's attack had all the lethality of a feather. Asher caught it effortlessly. You see my songwriting skills. So what kind of song do you want? Asher's sudden shift in topic caught Lena off guard. Her anger hadn't completely subsided. She plopped down onto the sofa, glaring at him. Anything I want. Yes, anything, Asher replied with a pleasant smile. Then, just as Lena was about to speak, he cut in with a supplement. Any songs I give you, you can sing and manage. We'll split the profits 50-50. My wife is in charge of my finances now. So as for me, you could just think of me as a songwriter trying to earn some pocket money. Lena wasn't particularly concerned about the split. This jerk had said before that he would only write hits and nothing else. Hudson River Blues was a fluke, a clever trick that catered to the masses and went viral overnight. She refused to believe Asher could create another miracle. Didn't you say last time you only write hits? Lena asked, a smirk playing on her lips. She was setting a trap, waiting for Asher to walk right into it. The pride she'd lost, she would reclaim herself. If Asher denied it now, he could still save himself. There was still time. But in the next moment, to Lena's delight, Asher remained as stubborn as ever. He nodded. That's right. Good. Very good. Lena practically hissed, her voice dripping with satisfaction. An inexplicable thrill shot through her. You're finished, Asher Vance. If it's a guaranteed hit, I'm happy to do a 70-30 split. You take 70, I'll take 30. 70-30 is so impersonal, Asher said. Given our relationship, 50-50 is all we need. Heh. Fine by me, Lena sneered. So, you like to play the big shot, do you? Okay, I'll play along. I want a sad love song, with a touch of melancholy. The story is about a girl who sacrifices herself to bring the boy she loves together with another girl. You just need to write the lyrics. I'll handle the melody myself. Can you do it? Ever since Asher's wedding, Lena had been wanting to write a song like this, to pour all her sorrow into a melody. She had written sad love songs before, and they had been successful. But none had ever felt this raw, this real. Before, she had drawn inspiration from the failed relationships of her celebrity friends. This time it was her own story. She had the concept, the general theme and direction, but the lyrics had eluded her. Now, she was throwing the challenge right back at the source of her pain. The man who had made her want to write such a heartbreaking song in the first place. Asher raised an eyebrow, lost in thought. Seeing him silent, Lena's eyes twinkled playfully. Can you write it or not? Asher's focus returned. A smile spread across his face. Of course. Good. Lena beamed, her own smile triumphant. She pulled a pen and a small notebook from her purse and handed them to him. Then begin your performance. Asher took them, asking without looking up, nothing else? Nope, Lena chirped, her eyes curving into crescent moons, her smile radiant. Oh, Asher replied flatly. And then, under Lena's watchful gaze, two words appeared on the paper. My blessing. Lena paused. The title was clever, poignant. She had a similar idea, something simple, just 2 or 3 words. but she had been stuck, unable to find the right ones. Then again, a title was just a title. The content was what mattered. A great title was useless without substance. The internet was full of people who were good at naming things. Lena leaned in closer, her curiosity piqued, watching as Asher's pen moved across the page. He wrote with the same fluid confidence as before, as if the words were simply flowing through him. But who could guarantee this song would be another hit? What if it was released and met with a lukewarm response? Wouldn't that mean he had lost to her? In the next instant, Lena's eyes widened. Not because of the lyrics taking shape on the page. That wasn't important right now. What was important was that she had forgotten to make another bet with him. Damn it, I was careless. Too hasty, too impulsive. No wonder she couldn't accomplish great things. She had let such an amazing man slip through her fingers. So much regret, so much frustration. If she could do it over, she would bet again. That first song, Hudson River Blues, was a fluke, mostly luck. She refused to believe Asher's luck could be that good every single time. Another 5 minutes passed. Asher finished writing and pushed the notebook across the table to Lena. While he had been writing, Lena had been like a curious child, craning her neck to see what he was putting on the paper. But no matter how she angled her head, she could only catch snippets. It was too fragmented to make sense of. Now, it was right in front of her. Lena snatched the notebook and began to scrutinize it. The usually playful superstar was now completely serious. To her, art demanded absolute concentration. It was a sign of respect. In contrast to the focused actress, Asher casually sipped his coffee, his mind wandering. My Blessing was a huge hit in his previous life, but in this world, it had never existed. Not even the title had been used. It was strange, considering the technological development of this world was almost identical to his own. With so many people, why has no one thought of it? A fair question. The textbooks contain all the world's knowledge, so why didn't you get into Harvard or Stanford? A certain noodle-slurping individual's inner voice retorted, because I'm only good at roasting sweet potatoes. Very quickly, Lena was captivated by the words on the page. Asher's handwriting was elegant, but more importantly, the content was devastating. As she read, her lips began to move, softly singing the lyrics to a melody forming in her mind. Seeing you and her, walking up to me, all the years of my youth I gave to you. In exchange for a single phrase, thank you for your blessing. My blessing became your next summer, all the sorrow left behind that day. I have only one thing to say, a blessing. With no regrets. Details. The man was all about the details. Every line was a perfectly crafted dagger to the heart. As Lena sang, her eyes began to well up. As a musician, she knew that to create a great song, you didn't first try to move everyone else. You had to move yourself. If you couldn't move yourself, how could you possibly move others? The ability to bridge that gap between the self and the audience was what separated the masters from the amateurs. It wasn't just amateurs. Many people born with a silver spoon, living in their own bubble, assumed that ordinary people's struggles couldn't be that bad. Don't have money? Why not just rent out one of your family's mansions? Don't have money? Why not just siphon the premium gas from your Mercedes and sell it? What? You still dare to say you have no money? Then why not sell that Armani belt you're wearing or your girlfriend's Hermes bag? Oh, you don't have those? My mistake. You must be a fake poor person. Back to Lena. Unconsciously, tears began to stream down her face. The song Asher had written, My Blessing, was a perfect fit. It flawlessly captured her emotions, leaving no room for doubt. Even if the reality of her relationship with Asher was different, who cared about reality? All that mattered was immersing herself in the song. All the years of my youth I gave to you. In exchange for a single phrase, thank you for your blessing. Lena couldn't hold back any longer and began to sing aloud. After all, it was just her and Asher in the room. Putting aside the fact that he was the creator, she couldn't contain the emotions bubbling up inside her. This song was written for her. It fit her experience. It fit the dynamic between her, Asher, and Scarlett. Fortunately, Asher couldn't hear her inner thoughts, or he would have burst out laughing and patted her on the shoulder, responsibly informing her, that's just a grand illusion of yours. In truth, the song was far more suited to his childhood friend, Catherine Young. Faced with Lena's impromptu performance, Asher grew intrigued. He watched the superstar, completely lost in the moment. Her vocal talent was undeniable, her voice rich and distinctive. Hearing her sing a cappella was a spiritual experience, the sound like something from heaven. On her very first try, she captured the song's essence, and to Asher, it sounded even better than the original version from his past life. It was indescribable. To sing with that much raw emotion, one had to have lived it. Right, what a joke, he thought. Lena, and is a main heroine. Would she have ever willingly been the other woman? Asher didn't dwell on it. He just listened as time slipped by. After what felt like an eternity, Lena finally returned to herself, two faint tear tracks still visible on her cheeks. She didn't even know what had happened, why she had been so deeply moved. It was easy enough to understand. Hudson River Blues hadn't hit her hard because she hadn't lived it. But my blessing? It had been written directly onto the pages of her heart. How could she not be moved? Asher watched her, a gentle smile on his face. So is it okay? Do you think it will be a hit? It's incredible. Lena sniffled, her tone resolute. It will definitely be a hit. As she met Asher's gaze, her heart began to race. That dormant feeling, which had been quiet for so long, flared back to life. Her heart, once as vast and empty as the sky, was now rekindling from the ashes. The A-list star's pulse quickened. The feeling was back, even more intense than when they had been filming The Agents. This man's allure was simply fatal. Good, glad to hear it. Asher smiled, stood up, and brushed off his pants, preparing to leave. The song was a guaranteed hit. He was helping Lena and earning some pocket money at the same time. It was a good deal. He didn't know how long these peaceful days would last. Ever since the protagonist of this world, the crooked-mouthed Dragon King Leo Flynn, had died, Asher's life had been fulfilling and happy. Before, even when he found joy, it was joy found in the midst of hardship. Now, the bitterness was gone. Life was sweet from beginning to end, in every sense of the word. Lena frowned, watching him get up to leave. "Where are you going?" she asked, a hint of displeasure in her voice. "Home, of course." "No. Do you have something else?" "Yes, I do. It's a matter of life and death." The superstar's brows shot up as she became assertive. He makes her cry and then thinks he can just walk away? Not in this lifetime. The A-list star was going to latch onto him and not let go. The consequences for making her cry were severe. No one could handle them. Asher raised an eyebrow. Lena's reminder had jogged his memory about something else. "You know, I almost forgot. Hudson River Blues was released on your account, right? The copyright belongs to you. We just need to split the profits from the ongoing operations 50-50. Asher had glanced online earlier and saw that the song was still a raging inferno of popularity. Properly managed, it could easily clear a few million. Influencers and marketing accounts had already made a killing off it, and the trend showed no signs of slowing down. Covers were popping up everywhere. And yet Asher, the songwriter, hadn't seen a dime. A few million wasn't a small amount for Asher. It would cover his pocket money for a good while. Lena paused, her response automatic. "Oh, okay." She had also checked the numbers for Hudson River Blues and knew it was a cash cow. The fact that Asher was entrusting her with the entire operation was perfect. If it were another artist, some might have offered him a larger cut out of respect, or even taken nothing at all, just for the clout. And clout was valuable. It built a fan base. You could do a few sponsored live streams, sell some merchandise, and easily make a fortune. Many of Lena's peers had gone down that route, selling snacks, furniture, even their own brand of wine, raking in cash. It was often more lucrative than their acting or singing careers. Just turn on a camera and chat. No acting skills required. No grueling film shoots. No agonizing over song lyrics. And the income was higher than ever. It was a tempting path. But some, like Lena, resisted. They had a professional code. No matter how much money she made, she would feel it was undeserved. Money earned through talent and hard work. That was the only kind that brought her peace. "Hey." Lena's lip twitched as she quickly reached out and grabbed Asher's arm before he could leave. "Wait just a minute." Asher looked at her, surprised. "Is there something else besides Hudson River Blues?" "Of course there is. Why else would I stop you?" Lena retorted, a hint of exasperation in her voice. Asher gestured for her to continue. Lena's lips parted, and a blush crept onto her cheeks. Come with me to record the song." Asher thought for a moment. "You don't know how to record it?" Lena shook her head. "That's not it. Did I not write it clearly enough?" Asher asked again. "That's not it either," Lena answered truthfully. Now Asher was confused. "Then why me?" "Because with you there." "Ahem. Because you're the one who wrote my blessing. You should be there to witness its creation. It's what art deserves." Lena's eyes burned with intensity, and she showed no sign of letting go of his arm. "Then just wait a second," Asher said with a wry smile, gesturing for her to release him. Seeing her hesitate, he chuckled. "Don't worry, I'm not going to run away." "Oomph." Lena immediately let go, turning her head away with an arrogant little snort, trying to hide her embarrassment. Asher wasn't bothered. He had a reason for asking her to let go. He needed to report in to the she-devil. He had to let her know he wouldn't be home for lunch. He sent the text, and a reply came back almost instantly. Scarlett had sent a smirking emoji and a very generous message, saying it was no problem at all. In the future, he didn't need to report such things to her. They had a fundamental trust that transcended words. That's what the she-devil said, anyway. But Asher felt it was still a good idea. Ever since their marriage, she had been getting the lion's share of his attention. Who knew when a surprise might pop up? If that happened, Asher's own feelings might change. This was just being proactive, just in case. With that done, Asher put his phone away and smiled. Okay, let's go. He didn't know how long these carefree days would last. His worries were not unfounded. As long as that damn system remained silent, lurking in the shadows, he could never truly relax. But its silence was also a blessing. Every day like this was a day earned, a day lived with no regrets. A flash of joy crossed Lena's face. She carefully placed the notebook back in her purse, checked it twice, and then put on her mask and sunglasses. Once she was ready, she started walking, her high heels clicking on the floor. As they walked, they drew closer and closer, until finally, on some strange impulse, Lena linked her arm through Asher's. Asher felt the warmth of her arm and caught the faint, intoxicating scent of her perfume. He was momentarily stunned. As far as he knew, Lena, despite being a superstar, had never been linked to any man. More importantly, what would her fans think? As for Asher, he didn't bother with a disguise. What a joke. People knew who he was. In the past, he'd been famous for changing girlfriends at a dizzying pace, sometimes more than once a day, a persona he had carefully cultivated for the plot. Now that he was married, that couldn't change. Hiding and sneaking around would only make Scarlett suspicious. There's no such thing as a secret that lasts forever. As for public opinion, or his father's thick leather belt, Asher was fearless. Ever since the wedding, his old man had mellowed out considerably. He hadn't brought out the belt once. Asher knew it was because Lawrence Vance saw him as a grown man now, one who could no longer be disciplined in the old ways. In short, if he was going to be timid, he wouldn't be Asher Vance. Starlight Entertainment. Lena was back on her home turf. A moment later, her assistant, Megan, having heard the news, rushed down from upstairs in the elevator. Seeing Lena with Asher, she looked distraught. Lena, it really is you. The paparazzi had, of course, gone wild when Lena had emerged from the cafe with her arm linked through Asher's. The headlines were already flooding the internet. Shocking scoop. Vance Corp air cheating after honeymoon. National husband's mystery woman. A slap in the face to heiress Scarlett Jo, who is Asher Vance's new companion. Our reporters are on the case. My mind is blown. As expected of the great Asher Vance, a role model for us all. By now, Lena had taken off her mask and sunglasses. What is it, she asked. Megan, seeing Asher standing nearby, was hesitant to speak. She leaned in close to Lena, pulled out her phone, and whispered in her ear. After a moment, a smile bloomed on Lena's face. She shot a quick glance at Asher and said, "If a certain someone doesn't care, why should I?" She was, of course, referring to Asher. Just a moment ago, when she had linked her arm with his, he had responded by placing his hand on the small of her back. The move had made her heart leap, but she had met his boldness with her own. Hiss! Megan sucked in a sharp breath, her eyes wide with astonishment as she stared at Asher. "Mr. Vance, you're a married man. Does your wife know about this?" If it had been anyone else, Megan would have already launched into a tirade. Damn it, trying to steal my boss away. She could have spun this for days, milking it for clicks and cash. But this was Asher Vance. Even if Lena had brought home another A-list celebrity, Megan wouldn't have been this deferential. She would have gone on the attack. After all, she had Lena's backing. She had been with her for years, a loyal and hard-working employee who had made Starlight Entertainment a fortune. She was practically a founding member. Feeling Megan's gaze on him, Asher simply offered her a slight smile. In that instant, thump, 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 Megan's heart skipped a beat. Even though she was a married woman with a child, a seasoned professional who had seen her fair share of handsome actors and pretty boy pop stars, her own company was full of them. She had never encountered anyone like Asher. It was just unfair. Completely, utterly unfair. How could any man be so devastatingly charming? Lena, remembering her mission, patted Megan on the shoulder. "I'm recording a new song. Go get the sound engineer and the mixer. If we're fast, we can release it today." Megan's body jolted, her eyes filled with excitement. "On it, Lena. I'm on it." A new song from Lena was always great news, but this felt fast. They hadn't even started the marketing campaign. For a moment, Megan forgot all about Lena and Asher's scandalous outing. The task at hand was what mattered. Lena had her own exclusive recording studio, custom designed to suit her tastes and spark her creative inspiration. When she wasn't filming, she would often spend her free time there, writing and singing. The professional sound engineers, however, were shared among the company's artists. They were the best in the business, handpicked and paid handsomely. I'm going to go record. You can wait in my office. If you want anything to eat or drink, just let my assistant know, Lena said to Asher. Asher shook his head. I'll come in with you. Lena nodded, saying nothing more. She led the way, her heels clicking rhythmically on the floor, the light, springy pace betraying her inner excitement. Soon, everyone was in position. Lena, treating it like a precious artifact, took out the original handwritten notebook. She had her assistant make a few copies for the engineer and mixer. Meanwhile, the superstar herself stood in the center of the recording booth, singing My Blessing a cappella. She was finding the key, getting the feel for the song. Asher was in the control room with them, which put the engineers on edge. It was like having the big boss suddenly show up for an inspection. The feeling was strange. But then, Lena's voice filled the room, and everyone's attention was captured. A song's success depended on its content. A good performance was a bonus, but the foundation was everything. Damn, the boss is still the reigning queen. This song, My Blessing, is absolutely killer. Whoa, it's making me think of my first love. Woody, if I remember correctly, your first love was the one who cheated on you, right? You caught her on a date with another guy. This song is from a girl's perspective. What's it got to do with you? Shut the hell up. My gut tells me this song is going to be a monster hit. The boss's songwriting skills are as sharp as ever. You can always trust her creative genius. Lena is the GOAT, a living legend. The crew whispered among themselves. Megan's eyes were also shining. A hit. This is going to be a hit. It has to be. After hearing one run-through, Megan quickly excused herself. She had to start making calls, figuring out which platform would get the exclusive premiere. It all came down to who was willing to pay the most. This was Lena's song. She couldn't afford to mess it up like she had with Hudson River Blues. Thinking of that song brought a tear to her eye. If she had been in charge of the release, she could have maximized the profits tenfold. But Lena hadn't given her the order, so the matter had been tabled. With the lesson learned, she would not make the same mistake with My Blessing. Back in the studio, the crew's whispers reached Lena's ears. The A-list star's cheeks burned. The original author was sitting right over there, calmly sipping tea and watching her with an amused expression. Lena desperately wanted to shout it from the rooftops. It was him. It was him. He's the real creator. Lena was dying to scream the truth. It was Asher. The song was all Asher. The melody wasn't hers. The lyrics weren't hers. But she kept silent. On their way over, Asher had reminded her. He didn't care who released the song or who got the credit. He just wanted the pocket money. Revealing his songwriting talent would only bring a swarm of unnecessary complications, things completely outside his field. But for Lena, it was a perfect fit. It was her profession, after all. The recording session began. Everyone was in position. Asher stopped what he was doing and became a silent observer, a background character in the scene. The session went off without a hitch. The crew was professional, and their chemistry with Lena was perfect. With everyone focused, there were no mistakes. They worked from noon until just after 4 in the afternoon. When they were finished, Lena, with a triumphant smile, presented Asher with the first master copy of the My Blessing single. It was still warm from the production equipment. Once the song became a hit, this disc would be a priceless collector's item. With Lena's autograph on it, it could sell for over $1 million. With a bit of hype, $10 million wasn't out of the question. For a massive hit, some collectors would even pay tens of millions. Of course, it had to be the very first copy of a brand new, viral song. Otherwise, no one would be that foolish. Asher smiled. Can I say no? The disc was useless to him. He wasn't a fan, and he wasn't short on cash. Well, except for a little pocket money. Otherwise, he wouldn't be writing songs for Lena in the first place. It was partly because of the whole situation with the crooked-mouthed Dragon King, and partly because, yeah, he was a bit short on cash. Simple as that. Nope. Lena chuckled, giving him no room to refuse. Asher sighed, then accepted the disc with a look of mock reluctance. The engineers and mixers watched, their eyes wide with envy. If he didn't want it, they would gladly take it. They were dying to get their hands on it. Why not just make their own copies and sell them? Because only the original copy, given by the artist herself, had any real value. They could try to pass off a fake, but if the company found out, they'd be out on the street. It was a simple cost-benefit analysis. They weren't about to throw away a long-term, high-paying job for a short-term gain. Working for Lena was a great gig. High salary, good environment, and the prestige of having her name on their resume would open doors at any other company. Lena, everything is ready. Are you ready to release the song? Megan asked, stepping up to her side. Lena nodded. Release it. Megan took a deep breath, steeling herself to push back one more time. Lena, are you sure you don't want to reconsider? For you and for this song, going viral won't be hard, but I want to maximize the profits. Take Hudson River Blues, for example. If you had given that to me, I could have made it earn so much more. She wasn't doing anything wrong. She wasn't questioning her boss's decision. She just wanted to make more money for the company. Of course, if Lena insisted, Megan would carry out her orders without another word. Lena paused, then a smile broke out across her face. You know, I almost forgot. We're in charge of Hudson River Blues now. You can go ahead and work your magic. I've already spoken with the singer. As she spoke, her eyes instinctively flickered toward Asher. It was a tiny detail that no one else in the room noticed. Megan's face lit up. That's fantastic. This is a double victory. You can leave it all to me. I won't let you down. Hudson River Blues has been out for less than 2 days. I guarantee I will squeeze every last drop of value out of it. The engineers who hadn't left yet were once again thrown into a state of shock and awe. Holy crap, that song that blew up last night, Hudson River Blues, is one of ours. No way. We got a genius in our midst. Boss, where's the original artist? I'm not gonna lie, I used to work a dead-end job down by the Hudson. That song spoke to my soul. I have to meet the master who wrote it. They were all professionals. The song's artistic complexity was low, but its emotional core was powerful. The mix of raw vocals and simple chords gave it a unique flavor that resonated deeply with anyone who had ever struggled in the city. It was like going somewhere and having a stranger call you buddy. It made you feel like you belonged. Lena suppressed a laugh. The master they were looking for was right in front of them. Of course, she would never betray Asher's secret. Oh, him? He's a bit shy, Lena said playfully. When he comes to the company, I'll introduce you all. Then, she turned to Asher and added, Isn't that right, Mr. Vance? Asher's mouth twitched. This superstar was a real piece of work, constantly teasing him. She clearly had no idea what true terror was. He wondered if she'd still be so cheeky after experiencing it. The thought was intriguing, but it vanished as quickly as it came. Yes, Asher said, smiling smoothly. A person like that is a rare find indeed. One of a kind. If the superstar wanted to play, he would play along. Praising himself felt surprisingly good. Lena's eye twitched. The engineers were now even more curious, ready to pepper Asher with questions about the mysterious singer. But Lena cut them off. All right, the workday isn't over yet. Everyone, back to your stations. After dismissing the crew, Lena couldn't help but roll her eyes and pout. You really are full of yourself, Mr. Vance. Asher just smiled. Don't call me Mr. Vance. It's too formal. An almost imperceptible blush colored Lena's cheeks. Then what should I call you? She mumbled. How about hubby? Asher teased. Lena's face turned a deeper shade of red. You're a married man. Have you no shame? She retorted, but her heart was suddenly hammering against her ribs, and a strange heat spread through her. What was happening? Asher's smile faded. In that case, just call me Asher. He had a feeling that if he kept playing this game, things would get complicated. It was better to shut down any impossible scenarios before they had a chance to develop. Otherwise, when things inevitably went wrong, it would be a real mess. But then again, in his current situation, Asher couldn't see the whole picture. He had no idea when that damn system might decide to stab him in the back. That was the real heart-stopper. The superstar looked at him, her eyes filled with a hint of resentment and a dash of provocation. Oh, where did all your courage go? Why not push a little harder? Lena's face flushed again, and she added in a voice as soft as a whisper, you know. If you insisted, I might have said yes. Asher's hearing was excellent. Her words hit him like a jolt of electricity. You might have said yes, but I wouldn't have. Let's just move on. Asher smoothly changed the subject. He just wanted to live the rest of his life in peace. As for everything else, they could talk about it later. Aren't you going to invite me to see your office? Right. Follow me, the superstar said, regaining her composure. She turned and walked ahead, her high heels clicking on the floor. Her heart, however, was still racing. Meanwhile, Megan had already sent out my blessing. The top offer won. As a premier platform, they had made an offer that Megan couldn't refuse. It had been generous to begin with, but then Megan mentioned that the viral hit Hudson River Blues was also under Starlight Entertainment's management. The executive on the other end of the line was stunned. He immediately got approval to double the offer. The message was clear. They hadn't vetted the quality of my blessing yet, but Lena Ann's track record was undeniable. That was a fact. And on top of that, they had a shot at the artist behind Hudson River Blues, whom every major label was trying to poach. It was a double whammy, a 2-for-1 deal. My God, who wouldn't jump at such an opportunity? Sure, It was expensive, but they would definitely make their money back, and then some. No one in this business was a fool. Sometimes, you had to take a risk to reap the rewards. This time, the music label's bet paid off. They immediately leveraged the massive popularity of Hudson River Blues to promote the release of Lena N's new song, My Blessing. With one song already a viral sensation and the other backed by Lena's enormous built-in fanbase, the two tracks combined to create a tidal wave that drowned out all the competition. At that very moment, a certain singer who had spent a fortune on his own promotional campaign was crying in his studio. What had he done to deserve this? Yesterday, he had been all set to release his new single. He had done his research, confirmed that none of the other releases could compete with him. He had even consulted a fortune teller to pick the most auspicious date. And then, just before midnight, Hudson River Blues had dropped out of nowhere and shattered his plans. He didn't even know who the artist was. A. Wong had swallowed his pride and waited. Today, he had timed his release perfectly, refusing to delay any longer. But about 10 minutes after his song went live, Lena Ann's My Blessing was released. All the traffic, all the buzz, vanished in an instant. And to add insult to injury, it turned out Hudson River Blues was also from her camp. Are you kidding me? Can't you just leave me alone? What did I ever do to you? A. Wong wailed, his heart broken. Hijacked. Again. Within 2 or 3 hours, My Blessing had completely exploded online. The lyrics were deeply relatable, the melody was easy to sing, and the quality was top-notch. It was destined to be a hit. Have dinner with me tonight. My treat, Lena said, unable to hide the smile on her face. This was a meal she was determined to buy. But Asher gently declined. Next time, he could skip lunch with the she-devil, but he had to be home for dinner. Lena's brow furrowed, a flicker of disappointment in her eyes. Well, then I won't insist. She knew his situation, but the more she understood, the more disappointed she felt. Just then, BZD. Asher's phone rang. He glanced at the screen. It was the she-devil. He answered without a second thought. Hey, what do you want for dinner tonight? What? You're not coming home? You have plans with friends? Okay, yeah, I get it. What's that? You're staying at their place overnight? All right, well, they have been out of the country for a long time. Have fun. He hung up. Lena blinked, then interjected. Your wife isn't coming home tonight? She had overheard the conversation. The office was well soundproofed. Asher smiled. No, then have dinner with me. Lena said, her eyes filled with anticipation. A stunningly beautiful woman had invited him out repeatedly. He had already turned her down multiple times. This time, Asher didn't want to refuse again. Okay, what was the point of going home if the she-devil wasn't there? To be a beast of burden? There were still 3 other mouths to feed at home. Asher had no time for that. Cooking was a hobby, not a profession. He was not a tool. The superstar's face lit up. He had finally agreed. Perhaps it was because she was so happy, but in the next moment, she asked an ill-timed question. Can you cook too? Asher raised his eyes to meet hers. They looked at each other in silence. At first, Lena felt a little uncomfortable, but soon, she became lost in his gaze. Asher's eyes were bright and clear, with an indescribable magnetism. It was easy to get lost in them. Asher, too, was momentarily stunned. A superstar heroine like her had a natural aura, a spotlight that followed her everywhere. But beyond that, her looks and figure were flawless. She was, without a doubt, a true star. A little bit, he said. Huh, not much. Just a little bit. Nightfall. 8 o'clock. A multi-million-dollar townhouse with a view of the river. While not as grand as the Vance estate, it was still impressive, equipped with every modern luxury and far more lavish than an ordinary home. This was one of the superstar's many properties. And at this moment, the superstar herself was curled up on a plush sofa in the living room, feeling a sense of disbelief. After a great deal of pleading, pouting, and shameless sweet-talking, she had finally managed to lure Asher to her home. She had even convinced him to cook. In exchange, of course, she had promised to do the dishes. It was a small price to pay. Despite her privileged upbringing, she had never developed lazy habits. So, the man had been successfully captured and was now busy in the kitchen. Lena had offered to help, but Asher had flatly refused, stating that a woman would only slow down his cooking speed. The comment had infuriated her at the time. Fine. If you don't want my free labor, be my guest. You're so high and mighty, Mr. Vance. You could do it all yourself. Ugh, I'm so hungry, Lena whined, tucking her legs under her and resting her chin on her knees, looking like a bored, pampered cat. After a moment, she muttered to herself, his food. It can't be that bad, can it? This wasn't just a random worry. It was a personal one. Other people's cooking cost money. Her cooking cost lives. In all her years as a celebrity, she had never once appeared on a cooking show. No one is perfect. What's that smell?" Lena's nose twitched. Her gaze drifted away from the television, which had just been on for background noise, a tool to fill the silence. The aroma of cooking food grew richer, more intense. As if on cue, Lena's stomach rumbled. Before she knew it, she was on her feet, slipping on her slippers and padding toward the kitchen. The kitchen was spacious and fully equipped. Though Lena rarely cooked for herself, she kept it stocked with all manner of spices and ingredients, even more so than some professional restaurants. When she reached the doorway, she saw Asher at the stove, a dragon of fire erupting from the wok as he flambéed the dish with a splash of white wine. The sight left Lena mesmerized. He looked like a master chef, every movement precise and confident. What was that saying? A man is never sexier than when he's cooking. Lena, then a thought struck her. And you call this just a little bit? A wave of annoyance washed over her. Her own culinary creations were an abomination. Asher's cooking was already at an expert level. It was no use. The aroma was too intoxicating. Lena stepped into the kitchen. Asher noticed her, but didn't say anything. The superstar blinked her beautiful eyes and offered, "I came to see if you needed any help." "I don't," Asher replied coolly. His detached tone instantly brought back that infuriating phrase, "A woman will only slow down my cooking speed." Suddenly, Lena's body tensed, and her voice grew louder. "Just let me look." Asher paused. She must be hungry too. He was starving himself. "It's almost ready." "Ahem. Sorry, I don't know what came over me," the superstar said, her face flushing. That was so out of character. After a moment of silence, she tried again. "I can help you bring the dishes out." Her eyes scanned the kitchen, finally landing on the plates of finished food on the counter. She stared at them, swallowing hard. "Okay." Given permission, the superstar pounced like a hungry wolf. "Thank you." The ingredients were all so ordinary, things you could find in any grocery store. But in the hands of a different chef, they were transformed into something magical. She thought of her own cooking, a pile of sticky, yellowish-black mush of unknown origin. A sigh escaped her lips. The gap between people, it was just so vast. Asher, of course, had no idea about her hidden talent. In the States, it was nothing special. But in India, she would be hailed as a five-star goddess of the kitchen. It was well known that the Japanese could turn shit into a delicacy, while the Indians could turn a delicacy into shit. Everyone had their strengths. The superstar had clearly been born in the wrong country, or perhaps had just never realized her true potential. Lena made several trips back and forth, carrying the plates, her mouth watering so much she had to keep swallowing. Asher, still at the stove, couldn't bear to watch. At the same time, a memory surfaced, and he called out a warning. No sneaking any food. He had learned from experience. Every time he cooked, someone would try to steal a bite. He didn't mind a little taste testing. But have you ever witnessed someone devour an entire platter of food before the rest of the meal is even on the table? Do you have any idea what Asher had been through all these years? Slurp. I wouldn't. Slurp. I would never sneak any food. Slurp. The superstar's words were completely unconvincing. Asher sighed in resignation. Just leave some for me. Oomph. I see you have no faith in my character, she huffed, her nose high in the air. She added, "Do I look like that kind of person?" Asher. After a few seconds of silence, he replied flatly, "You don't look like it." The superstar's face lit up. "Oomph. I knew he'd side with me. Since you're being so understanding, I'll forgive you. You should be grateful for my benevolence." But then Asher continued, "You don't look like it. You are it, Lena." "Who am I? Where am I? What am I even doing?" Asher Vance was bleeding, metaphorically speaking. He'd seen the beginning of this play coming a mile away, but he sure as hell hadn't predicted the ending. Lena, and the reigning queen of the silver screen, was now fuming with a charming sort of indignation. How dare he question her integrity? Was she the kind of woman who went back on her word? The kind of woman who would abandon all semblance of dignity to gorge herself on a few dishes? A piglet in couture? No, she was not. She was Lena, an artist who had traveled the world, tasted the creations of Michelin-starred chefs, and graced the most exclusive tables. She would never be a slave to her appetite. Unless, of course, she couldn't help it. And the food was free. And it was this unbelievably, transcendentally good. In the end, after one test bite led to another, and another, Lena had devoured 2 entire plates before Asher even emerged from the kitchen. A look of profound, unfulfilled longing remained on her face. She had, after all, failed to escape the universal law of just one bite. The most audacious part was her internal monologue as she ate. "This isn't stealing," she told herself. "It's quality control. I'm just helping him test the flavors. If it's terrible, we can still order takeout." There's still time. Then, she'd lost all control. After finishing the first plate, a wave of defiant rage washed over her. Fine, she thought. You were right, Asher Vance. I am exactly the kind of woman you thought I was. By the time the second plate was clean, her guilt had plummeted to absolute zero. Asher's mouth twitched, but he wisely said nothing. Dinner's ready, he announced, setting down the remaining platters. He wasn't going to mention it. That was for the best. And Lena certainly wasn't stupid enough to bring it up. This time, when Asher called her to the table, she abandoned all pretense. Though her movements remained elegant and her posture impeccable, something fell off. Asher watched her for a moment before a stark reality hit him. Lena ate several times faster than a normal human being. Slow down, he started. No one's going to, he caught himself. Just slow down. Okay, she said, not slowing down. That jumbo shrimp is mine. Don't touch it. I cooked all this and haven't had a single one. Okay. Asher watched in disbelief as her fork darted out and snagged the very shrimp in question. Didn't I just say not to touch it? Okay. He was caught between laughter and tears. Arguing was pointless. Action, he realized, was the only answer. If he didn't move, Lena would consume everything on the table. He'd learned his lesson. No more negotiating. He simply dug in. A short while later, the table was a wasteland of empty dishes. They both leaned back in their chairs. Lena gazed down at her slightly rounded stomach, a look of pure, blissful satisfaction on her face. Asher hadn't gotten many of the main dishes, but he'd filled up on rice. For the moment, they were two beings without want or desire, having achieved a state of post-meal enlightenment. The old saying about a full belly leading to other appetites didn't seem to apply. Not yet, anyway. They'd at least need to digest first. Asher, did you know? Lena began, breaking the comfortable silence. Your song, My Blessing, has completely blown up online. About the revenue split we agreed on. I want to change it to 70-30. I'll only take 30. This meal alone was worth the other 20% she was offering. A man who could cook like this, write music like that, and sing with that voice. Yes, the extra cut was a tip. Consider it a gift from your benefactor, she thought magnanimously. You should be thanking your lucky stars. Asher just shook his head. We said 50-50. That's what it is. The song's success was expected. He showed no surprise. Then, Lena sat up straight, her expression turning serious, almost anxious. Can we continue to collaborate? 2 hit songs meant a mountain of cash and a tidal wave of prestige. But that wasn't the point. The point was, what if Asher decided to stop writing music? If he stopped, how could she find excuses to invite him over? How could she justify a private celebration dinner for 2? Without his songs, who would support her staff? And her Mercedes? Oh wait, that didn't matter. She didn't own a Mercedes. And her staff could support themselves. Asher smiled. Of course, but haven't I already given you 2 hits? A person can't be too greedy, after all. Lena knew that, but if she didn't act fast, he was going to leave. Asher gestured to the battlefield of plates and serving dishes. Cleanup is all yours. Don't go back yet, Lena said, a sudden urgency in her voice. They were on completely different wavelengths. Asher paused. Go back where? I was just going to sit in the living room for a bit to digest. If you don't, I'm willing, Lena declared, her eyes burning with an intensity that had nothing to do with digestion. The atmosphere shifted. Asher felt a subtle, electric charge in the air. He stood up and headed for the living room. Okay then, I'll leave this to you. It is this humble servant's duty, she purred behind him. A shiver went down Asher's spine, goosebumps rising on his arms. She was doing on purpose. Absolutely on purpose. Her voice was honey-sweet, like a highborn lady from some period drama. And given that Lena was an Oscar-caliber actress, she knew exactly how to play the part. She could wrap a man around her little finger with that ancient damsel act. Asher quickened his pace. These city girls play a different game, he thought wryly. Watching him flee, Lena let out a soft laugh. But the smile quickly faded, replaced by a troubled frown. How am I going to get him to stay? She muttered to herself. Lena, if you miss this chance, you may never get another one. I'm so lost. What do I do? Her phone, sitting on the counter, lit up with a new message. She'd silenced it earlier, not wanting any interruptions. She picked it up, and her whole body tensed. Oh God, why is she messaging me? Lena whispered, her voice trembling. She was instantly thrown back to a time of being utterly dominated by certain someone, a feeling of heart-pounding fear mixed with an inexplicable, thrilling excitement. The message was from none other than Scarlett Jo. There were 3 of them. Lena swallowed hard, her fingers shaking as she swiped the screen open and tapped on the notification. The messages read, Hey girlie, you there? My husband's over at your place tonight, right? Just started, huh? I'm rooting for you. You got this. Go get. Winking face, the 3 short messages sent a blazing heat through Lena's entire body. Her cheeks were on fire. So, Scarlett knew everything. The clown, it turned out, was me all along. There's an old saying, as long as you're not the one who's embarrassed, the embarrassed one is always someone else. Lena took a deep breath, composed herself, and picked up her phone again to analyze the 3 messages. Know your enemy, know yourself, and you will not be imperiled in 100 battles. The first message was just a greeting. She could ignore it. The real intel was in the next 2. The second message was a bombshell. Scarlett knew Asher was here. They had been seen leaving that cafe together today. A paparazzo must have snapped a picture, and it had already made the rounds. Not that Asher would care. But had he told Scarlett himself? No. Lena had been with him the whole time. Besides, Scarlett wasn't the type to ask questions she already knew the answer to. This was a calculated deduction on her part. But it was the third message that was the true masterstroke. The meaning was unmistakable. Is this a test? Or is she just testing me? Lena couldn't decide. She typed out a reply, then deleted it. After a moment of careful consideration, she decided to play it safe. Lena, oh my God, Scarlett, I am so sorry. We were just having dinner. I saw your message and replied the second I could. It was a masterclass in passive aggression, but what choice did she have? If you wanted a piece of the candy, you had to play by the candy maker's rules. This wasn't about being subservient. It was about showing respect. A reply came almost instantly. Scarlett, no worries. Eating out? Where did you cook? Friendly tip. He makes amazing food. Winking face. Lena froze. In that moment, the shared human experience of joy and sorrow connected them across the city. Yes, he did make amazing food. Was Scarlett praising her for taming the beast, or praising the beast himself? Lena's face flushed as her fingers flew across the screen. Lena, it was pretty good. Scarlett, did you really mean what you said before? Scarlett, a promise is a promise. If you've got the guts, you have every right to a piece of the candy. I believe in you. Don't let me down. On a degree, nabla degree. Meanwhile, across town, Scarlett was lounging at a friend's apartment, a triumphant smile on her face. She had finally hooked one. Her joy was boundless. After all this time, someone had finally volunteered to help her bear the brunt of the artillery fire. How could she not be ecstatic? This was happening. She was going to make sure of it. Back in her kitchen, Lena's face was beet red. Even with Scarlett's explicit permission, she felt a knot of anxiety. People went back on their word all the time. It wasn't always malicious. Circumstances just changed. You promise to do something you're capable of, but then a few days later, the difficulty increases, the price gets higher, and suddenly you're crossing a line you never intended to. Can you blame someone for backing out then? Even the most honorable people have moments of weakness. Lena had seen too many actors and directors break contracts. Experience had made her cautious. She needed absolute certainty. The last thing she wanted was for Scarlett to resent her later, to call her a home-wrecking tramp. Suddenly, her phone buzzed with an incoming video call. Lena jumped, looking around guiltily as if she'd been caught red-handed. Seeing no one, she fumbled for her Bluetooth earbuds, connected them, and finally accepted the call. Scarlett's smiling face appeared on the screen. I feel like I've said this a dozen times, she said warmly. When I make a promise, I don't break it. Lena managed a weak smile. But, ooh, so you guys are at your place? His cooking really is top-notch, isn't it? Scarlett winked. Lena nodded. Yes, it's incredible. Scarlett's grin widened. Well, there's a whole new continent of incredible waiting for you to discover tonight, she said, her tone dripping with playful innuendo. Lena blushed furiously. She was no match for this she-devil. She wanted to scream, I'm not. I didn't. Stop slandering me. But what happened next left her utterly speechless. The she-devil began an impromptu masterclass. The unofficial guide to wooing Asher Vance. 36 stratagems for conquering your man. The do's and don'ts of seducing a married man. It was a crash course in shameless audacity. Scarlett held nothing back, detailing every tactic, every warning, every little secret. Lena's jaw hung open. Was Scarlett for real? In that moment, Lena was completely and totally humbled. And as she thought about it, she realized Scarlett's methods were actually brilliant. Okay, that's the gist of it. Seize the moment, Scarlett said, then paused, a sly, knowing smile playing on her lips. And hey, no shame in crying. Just a heads up. The change in topic was so abrupt it gave Lena whiplash. Crying? Why would she cry? She wasn't a child. Before Lena could ask, Scarlett had ended the call. Huh? Lena stared at her phone, completely bewildered. Oh crap. She didn't have time to dwell on it. There was a more pressing matter at hand. The mountain of dirty dishes wasn't going to clean itself. She tossed her phone aside and got to work. Half an hour later, she emerged from the kitchen carrying a tray laden with sliced fruit. Her heart was a frantic mix of excitement and terror. It was getting late. Asher had said he was going to leave. How could she make him stay? As for Scarlett, well, that was settled. They were family now. Did family really need to discuss these things? Fruit's here, Lena called out, forcing a bright smile and pitching her voice to a lilting, sweet tone. Fruit. Asher tore his eyes away from the TV. Lena placed a tray on the coffee table, her smile fixed in place. Yep, here are the toothpicks, right by you. Asher smiled back and dutifully picked up a piece of melon. She'd brought it all the way out. He couldn't just ignore it. Is it sweet? She asked. It's all right. Good. It's all the freshest stuff. Have some more. Okay. He took another piece, trying to think of something to say. He glanced at the clock on the wall. Almost 10. He had about 20 minutes before it got uncomfortably late. It's getting late, he announced. I should probably get going. Lena, who had been mentally running through step one of Scarlett's plan, froze. Ah, she yelped in surprise. So soon. Asher gestured to the clock. It's not early. Lena glanced at it dismissively. Seems pretty early to me, she muttered. Was this that I don't care what you think, I care what I think energy he'd heard about? Asher chuckled and grabbed his jacket. The original plan had been simple. Sit for a bit, let the food settle, and wait for her to finish the dishes. It would be rude to just disappear without saying goodbye. But Lena had thrown a wrench in the works by taking forever in the kitchen, leaving him in an awkward limbo. But now she was here, and he could make his escape. He didn't notice Lena, who had turned to stone beside the couch, as he walked over to the wall outlet and unplugged his phone. It had died earlier that afternoon. He powered it on and entered his passcode. I'm heading out, he said, dropping the classic line of every man who has ever made a clean getaway. Lena was dumbfounded. Leaving? I haven't even gotten on the train yet. What do you mean leaving? Just then, as if on cue, his phone rang. It was his old man. Without thinking, Asher swiped to answer. You have some nerve, boy. Lawrence Vance's voice boomed through the speaker. I've been calling for hours. You're having fun, aren't you? Living it up. Where the hell are you? Asher held the phone an arm's length from his ear until the storm subsided. When it was safe, he brought it back. Dad, my phone died. Your phone. No battery. Why did it have no battery? I was using a lot this afternoon, and there was nowhere to charge it. Why were you using it so much? To kill time. The interrogation continued, a rapid-fire exchange between father and son. Finally, Lawrence couldn't take it anymore. Do you really think I'm going to believe that garbage? You were out gallivanting again. You don't even come home for dinner anymore. Don't think just because you're grown and married you can do whatever you want. As long as I'm alive, I make the rules in this family. The rant continued. I don't care where you are. You get your ass home right now. And to make sure you don't go causing any more trouble, as of tonight, I'm cutting you off. Your cards, your accounts, all of it. You'll get a basic living allowance and nothing more. Asher was stunned. Wow, the old man is really pissed. Without his father's funding, who would pay for gas for his supercars and yacht? Dad, are you really going to be that extreme? Extreme? Lawrence scoffed. You have no idea what you've done. Your mother and I thought you were done with your wild phase, but you're incorrigible. You ignore the beautiful flower you have at home to go water weeds in some stranger's garden. What is wrong with you? Fine, Asher said coolly. I'll make my own money. Huh, you think I don't know what you're capable of? His father's laugh was pure disdain. The idea of Asher being self-sufficient was hilarious to him. For years, Asher hadn't caused any major disasters at the company because Lawrence and Eleanor had preemptively solved every problem he might encounter. They had surrounded him with the best and brightest in the industry. It was like 4 pro gamers carrying a rookie through a bronze-level match. As long as the other team wasn't secretly stacked and they didn't have a traitor, how could they possibly lose? The gloves were off. There was no reasoning with his father now. Dad, I have to go. I'm in the middle of closing a deal worth a few $100 million. What? Lawrence's face, Asher imagined, was turning a fascinating shade of purple. How dare you say something like that to me? Get your ass back here. Don't make me come find you. The rage was palpable. Asher could tell his father had jumped to a very wrong, very sleazy conclusion. It's true, Dad. Talk to you later. He hung up as his father was still roaring. A second later, the phone rang again. Asher blocked the number. To be safe, he blocked his mother's number too. A temporary measure, of course. With that done, he finally looked at Lena. Making money was easy for him. All it took was a little effort, and he had a small project right here. As her name entered his mind, he met her gaze. Lena, whose face was already flushed, took an involuntary half-step back. She had overheard everything, and after Scarlett's little coaching session, Her mind was already in the gutter. The phrase big business had taken on a whole new, much more illicit meaning. HM? Your mind went there too, didn't it? Asher asked. I don't know what you're talking about. I didn't. Stop it, she stammered. I'm serious. I want to talk to you about a project worth a few $100 million. Okay, she said, her voice dropping to a breathy whisper. Fine. What kind of positions did you have in mind? Is there a dress code? Because if not, I'll just wear whatever. Asher just stared at her. An entire universe of confusion and exasperation passed through his mind in a single second. He walked over to her. Lena looked up, her expression a cocktail of 1 part surprise, 1 part confusion, and 2 parts anticipation. He raised his hand and gave her a light flick on the forehead. Get your mind out of the gutter, he said, the corner of his mouth twitching. I'm serious. I'll write you some more hit songs. You handle the business side, and we split the profits. Lena rubbed her head, her eyes misting over from the gentle sting. That's it? She asked, her voice filled with a curious disappointment. Asher glared at her. That's it. She bit her lip, still looking unconvinced. Really, he confirmed. TCH, you little chicken, she thought, a wicked glimmer in her eyes. That's all you've got? Useless. After all that build-up. A sly, knowing smile spread across her lips. The expression was so familiar, so distinctly mischievous, that for a split second, Asher saw the ghost of Leo Flynn, the crooked-mouthed Dragon King, superimposed over her face. Without thinking, he raised his hand and flicked her forehead again. Ow. Hey, what was that for? Nothing, he said nonchalantly. Just felt like messing with you. Is that a problem? No, it's fine, she grumbled, rubbing her head again. You're the boss. My new business partner. Whatever you say goes. Lena's villa had a state-of-the-art music studio on the top floor. It was a sprawling, beautifully designed space with a massive skylight that opened onto a rooftop terrace. The decor was eclectic and artistic, a place that felt like it could elevate both mind and body. It was the kind of room that could make even the foulest mood vanish upon entry. Asher sat on a stool, a clean notepad and a pen already laid out on the desk before him. He looked over at Lena, who was hovering awkwardly by the door. So, should I just write whatever comes to mind? Or do you have something specific you're looking for? Lena snapped back to reality and clicked across the floor in a fresh pair of heels. These were her indoor stilettos, of course, not the ones that had touched the filthy outside world. Are you really going to write something now? She asked, a note of disbelief in her voice. Asher glanced up at her and shrugged. My old man cut me off. How about I make some money, right? With my monthly expenses, I'd probably starve to death on the street otherwise. Starving to death was unlikely. Lena snorted, rolling her eyes. Why don't you just ask your wife for money? She teased, feeling particularly bold tonight. I don't like being a kept man, Asher replied with a shake of his head. Lena was about to pounce on that, to declare that what the she-devil wouldn't provide, she would. Your expenses are covered, darling. I'll take care of you. But then Asher added, of course, that only applies to being kept by my wife. I'm perfectly fine with being kept by outsiders. Lena burst out laughing. She had no idea what was going on in his head. She had changed out of her dinner clothes and was now wearing a stunning black lace dress. The deep V neckline showcased a swathe of pale skin, creating a stark, breathtaking contrast. It was elegance and sensuality woven together. Asher found the wardrobe change odd. Her reason? It helps me get into character. He decided not to question it. Artists had their quirks. Well, Asher, Lena purred, fluttering her eyelashes. Have you considered my offer to keep you? He was her own personal demon, sent to test her. He was lucky he hadn't yet tasted the wrath of a woman scorned. Ahem. He cleared his throat, pointedly ignoring her advance. Let's talk about the song. Party pooper, she muttered under her breath, before straightening up. I don't have any special requirements. I can sing any genre. She was, after all, a versatile and talented artist. But her confidence also stemmed from Asher himself. He had already produced 2 massive hits. For My Blessing, she had given him specific parameters, and he had delivered a masterpiece that had blown her away. This time, she wasn't going to make things difficult. Even a moderately successful song would be a win. If she didn't use it, one of the other artists under her label could. Asher nodded and began to write, his pen scratching across the paper. Curiosity got the better of her. She tiptoed over, moving slowly so as not to disturb him, and tried to peek over his shoulder. You're going to slow me down, he said without looking up. Go sit over there and wait. Lena stopped dead in her tracks, stunned. Is that all I am to you? A distraction? So if your speed flags, it's my fault? Men. She pouted, but obediently retreated to a nearby armchair. She was annoyed, but she knew better than to interrupt the creative process. While Asher wrote, she needed to formulate her own battle plan. The songs were just the appetizer. Asher himself was the main course. As a great philosopher once said, to get the man, you must first have the man. She watched him, her mind racing with strategy. But soon, the strategizing faded, replaced by the simple act of admiring his focused expression. Half an hour passed in a blur. Lena was so lost in thought she didn't even notice he had finished until he was standing in front of her, holding out a sheet of paper. It's done?" she asked, snapping out of her reverie. Asher handed her the A4 paper. "It's done." She took it, her eyes scanning the page. "Why did it take so long this time?" she asked casually. "You're usually so much faster." Asher's jaw tightened. He suspected she was taking a jab at him, but he had no proof. The woman was infuriatingly clever. He chose to ignore the question and turned to get a glass of water. "Take your time reading it. I'm getting a drink." He didn't need to tell her twice. She was already completely absorbed. Her chest rose and fell as her eyes devoured the page. The title was Whispers of the Earth. The lyrics were a powerful ode to environmentalism, a celebration of harmony between humanity and nature. As an industry veteran, Lena instantly recognized the song's brilliance, especially the musical notation scribbled in the margins. In that moment, her mind was filled with the shape of him. After a long moment, Lena finally lifted her gaze from the paper and let out a heavy breath. She looked at Asher, her tone deadly serious. "Asher, you wrote this song beforehand, didn't you?" "The other two as well." It was the only logical explanation. Improvisation? Please. She wasn't some naive 3-year-old who would fall for such a ridiculous story. Asher just smiled. "Does it matter?" Lena's chest swelled with a mix of awe and frustration. Compared to a woman like Serafina Hayes, she was miles ahead in this department. But compared to Asher, yes, of course it matters, she shot back, then added in a quieter voice. "It proves I'm not a complete failure." It was the truth. In her prime, nearly every song Lena wrote became a hit. But she had never reached Asher's level of freakish talent, the ability to conjure instant hits out of thin air. It was a power she couldn't even fathom. Asher considered her words for a moment, then nodded. "Yes, I wrote it beforehand." The man was a monster, an absolute, infuriating monster. Her pride was in tatters. "So what do you think of it?" Asher asked, a slight smile on his face. This one was all his, a creation born from his own mind. He was curious to hear a professional's opinion. Lena pulled herself together, shooting a glare at the man who had so effortlessly eclipsed her. "It's brilliant," she admitted, her voice tight with a sincerity she couldn't hide. She carried the sheet music to the grand piano, set it on the stand, and cleared her throat, settling herself into the perfect state of mind. With a deep breath, she sat down, her hands hovering over the ivory keys. After a brief, rippling arpeggio to center herself, she began. The music Asher wrote had a kind of magic to it, a siren call that chipped away at her defenses. In that instant, everything else melted away. All she wanted was to bring this song to life. Normally, she would have changed into more practical footwear for playing, but vanity won out. She had to look her best for him. The discomfort was a small price to pay. She played the intro, a haunting, beautiful melody, and then she began to sing. Her voice was rich and magnetic, with a unique timbre that made it instantly recognizable. It was a natural gift many singers would kill for. She sang Whispers of the Earth, and Asher listened from the side, nodding in approval. It was more or less what he had expected. Lena had the skill to execute it perfectly. She was like a professional race car driver. You just had to show her the track, and she would find the fastest line, never crashing, never faltering. Every minute or so, she had to stop to turn a page. It was unavoidable. She wasn't the composer. It would be impossible to perform it perfectly on the first try. But with each repetition, she grew more comfortable, more confident. After another 30 minutes, Lena had finally mastered Asher's rhythm. But the strain of playing in heels was starting to show. Her feet ached, and she reluctantly had to stop. "This song, it's truly amazing," she said, her brow glistening with a fine sheen of sweat. Her body was tired, but her mind was electric. She had entered a state of pure, creative ecstasy. It was a matter of purpose. Some people find certain tasks draining, while others can lose themselves completely, forgetting to eat or sleep. It was like the difference between a straight-A student who could study for hours and the kids in the back of the class who only came alive during the annual track meet. Everyone had their calling. "I'm glad you like it," Asher said with a smile. Lena waved a hand, still catching her breath. "I just want to keep singing it." "All right," he said. "How about I accompany you?" Lena's eyes widened. She looked at him, her expression a mix of shock and confusion. You play the piano? Not really. It's been a long time. I'm a bit rusty, Asher said, deciding not to crush her spirit completely. He gestured to a violin case in the corner. I'm better with the violin. Lena stared at him, her eyes as wide as saucers. Asher worried that if he pushed her any further, she might actually snap and attack him. Being this talented was, at times, a lonely burden. He had the system to thank for it all, of course. The eidetic memory, the enhanced physical coordination. It had all been a gift from his early days. The system's logic had been simple. You're going to have to walk this plot, and I don't want you screwing it up. The old system had been so diligent, so meticulous. Not like now, when it had completely ghosted him. Lena studied him for a long moment before her mood finally brightened. Well, give it a try then. She was clinging to his claim of being not really good at piano, a small comfort she could use to convince herself he wasn't entirely invincible. All right, let me get a feel for it, Asher said, taking the violin out of its case. Everything in Lena's home was top of the line, especially her instruments. This was her livelihood, after all. Cost was no object. As Asher drew the bow across the strings, Lena's eyes sparkled, reflecting his image. At first, he seemed a bit hesitant, perhaps unused to the instrument's specific weight and balance. But that awkwardness vanished in a heartbeat, replaced by a melody so beautiful and pure it filled the room. Lena's jaw dropped. From every angle, Asher radiated the effortless confidence of a true master. The man was terrifying. After a few stunned seconds, she managed to speak. Do you need more time to practice? I can wait. Asher chuckled. No need. She blinked, accepting his answer. Are you ready? Ahem, yes. Okay, I'm going in. Be gentle, she murmured. Slowly. I know, he replied with a wink. I have a lot of experience. Don't worry. The next moment, he began to play the violin. The intro swelled and faded, but Lena remained silent. Asher had to stop, a look of confusion on his face. Is something wrong? She stared at him, her expression unreadable. You play the violin often, don't you? He smiled. I don't have time for this stuff. I haven't touched one in years. What? Years? He hasn't played in years, and he's this good? What kind of god is he? Lena felt her mind short-circuit. She swallowed hard. No reason. Let's continue. She couldn't let him get to her. She had to use her own voice to soothe her small, wounded soul. Asher quickly found his rhythm again, and this time, Lena didn't miss her cue. The moment the intro finished, her voice joined his melody. As a singer, it was second nature for her to immerse herself in the music. The song resonated deep within her, and she connected with it instantly. The performance lasted a little over 4 minutes. When the final note faded, Lena slowly opened her eyes. She had been singing with them closed, lost in the world of the song. Their performance had been flawless, a seamless fusion of two artists at the peak of their craft. Her chest rose and fell with emotion. The song's message had taken root in her soul. She had become the environmental crusader from Asher's lyrics. You should take all the profits from this song, she said, her voice filled with conviction. On behalf of everyone who loves this planet, thank you. The song was bigger than commerce. Its ability to forge an immediate, powerful connection with the listener was a priceless gift. She wanted no part of the money. Asher simply raised an eyebrow. Have you forgotten our agreement? Lena looked chagrined. Sorry, you're right. In that case, I'll donate my share to the Environmental Protection Agency. Do what you want, Asher said with a shrug. It was her money. All he wanted was his allowance. Okay, she said, her mind already racing. I'll have my assistant prep the materials and send it to one of our top artists. She can't perform it. Lena was an industry titan, and her protégés were some of the hottest stars in the business. Giving the song to one of them would guarantee its success. Asher nodded. Whatever you think is best. He didn't care who sang the songs as long as he got paid. Within 10 minutes, the ever-efficient Lena had everything arranged. Then, she retrieved a bottle of ultra-premium champagne from a mini-fridge in the corner of the studio. To you, Asher, she said, handing him a flute. He took it, and they clinked glasses. The crystal rang with a clear, bright note. Lena downed her champagne in one go. Asher followed suit. She immediately refilled his glass. Come on, another, she urged. He watched as she topped off her own glass as well. With a sigh of resignation, he clinked his glass against hers again. She drained it. He drained his. Just as she reached for the bottle again, Asher cut in. Aren't you going to test out the other 9 songs? A fine mist of champagne sprayed directly into Asher's face. The look on Lena's face was a masterpiece of pure, unadulterated shock. What is the definition of surprise? Could someone please define what the hell surprise means? Lena was paralyzed. When Asher said there were 9 other songs, her mind simply broke. It had to be a joke. It just had to be. The fastest man alive wasn't this fast. Her mouth hung open, forming a perfect O. You really wrote 9 other songs? She stammered. Asher nodded. Why would I lie? Go look at the stack of paper yourself. Lena rushed over to the desk. She remembered thinking he'd grabbed too much paper earlier, but she'd been so captivated by Whispers of the Earth that she hadn't given it a second thought. Now, her heart hammered against her ribs. What had she almost missed? She snatched up the papers. The first song was titled Rings of Time, a hauntingly beautiful period piece. A quick scan of the lyrics sent a pang of sorrow through her heart. It was magnificent. She frantically flipped through the rest. There were 8 more. Redemption, Starlight, Beyond the Wind, Soulmates, True Love, Sun and Moon, West Coast Island, The Thawing. Each song was a different genre, a different mood, spanning styles from across the world. By the time she finished her initial survey, Lena was frozen solid, standing there like a statue. She had told him to just write whatever, and he had. He'd done it so casually, so effortlessly, that he hadn't even repeated a single theme. Every single one was a potential classic. They say every artist eventually runs out of ideas, but that rule clearly didn't apply to Asher. He had written 10 masterpieces in the time it took her to get slightly tipsy. She finally found her voice. How did you come up with all these? Asher instinctively went to point at his heart, then thought better of it and tapped his temple instead. With my brain. Lena frowned. He shook his head, then nodded, and finally pointed to his chest with a smile. Mostly with my heart. She felt an overwhelming urge to punch him. Don't think you can get away with it just because you're handsome. But then she remembered the songs. Fine, I'll forgive you this time. Can you accompany me again? She asked, her voice soft and her cheeks flushed. I want to sing Rings of Time. Her attitude toward him had undergone a seismic shift. From the movie set to this very moment, her perception of Asher had been completely rewritten. He was now, in her mind, the perfect man. She had always prioritized her music, and her standards for a partner were impossibly high, effectively eliminating 999,999% of the male population. She had resigned herself to dying alone. But then, Asher had appeared like a bolt of lightning, illuminating her dark, lonely world. Sure, he agreed with a smile. Lena's heart soared. She immediately refilled his glass. Thank you. Cheers. Asher sighed and clinked his glass against hers. As soon as they'd finished, Lena grabbed 2 more bottles from the fridge and uncorked them before positioning herself in the middle of the room, ready to sing. To her surprise, Asher didn't pick up the violin. Instead, he walked over to the grand piano and sat down. Her eyes widened again. You can. Clang. His answer was a single, resonant chord that filled the studio. Ready. Lena scrambled to look at the lyrics, her voice a clear, bell-like hum as she familiarized herself with the melody. Asher waited patiently. After a few minutes, she took a deep breath. I'm ready. Okay, he said softly. He began to play the intro. When it finished, her voice floated into the room. A circle drawn becomes a fingerprint pressed upon my lips, a memory of a bitter kiss, like the roots of a tree. It was her first time singing it, but a true artist connects with emotion instantly. As she sang, the lyrics pierced her heart. A single tear traced a path down her cheek. In that moment, she was the tragic heroine of an ancient tale, pining for a lost love. And because that love was Asher, a man already taken by the she-devil Scarlet, the feeling was all too real. When the song ended, Asher stood up and grabbed a tissue. Oh, you're crying? He teased. Lena took the tissue and dabbed at her eyes, glaring at him. Well, I wonder whose fault that is. Asher blinked. Right? My fault. The song he wrote had made her cry. It wasn't intentional, but the evidence was undeniable. So what do you think of the song? He asked. Here, have some more champagne. No, I'm done. You go ahead. I have to drive later. Oh, well, more for me then. Lena poured herself a glass and was about to drink it when she suddenly appeared right in front of him. In her heels, she was nearly his height. Before he could react, she leaned in and pressed her lips to his. He was completely blindsided. He hadn't stood a chance. The sweet, bubbly taste of champagne mixed with her own unique fragrance, creating a heady, intoxicating flavor. She pulled back, a mischievous glint in her eyes. There, she said, her voice a husky whisper. We drink together. It all happened so fast that Asher didn't even have time to process it. He knew from their time on set that Lena was an amateur in this department, but she'd clearly had some practice since then. The real issue was that his brain had simply short-circuited, and Lena, sensing his vulnerability, pressed her advantage. After a long moment that felt both fleeting and eternal, she reluctantly pulled away, leaving him with a lingering taste of champagne and a new understanding of the phrase "sweet lips." The silence that followed was thick with unspoken words. Lena, ever the performer, broke it with a playful pout. "Oomph. That's what you get for making me cry, you brute." Asher was still rebooting. "What? Who am I? Where am I? What has happened? It's my fault you cried?" By that logic, I could say, "You can't arrest me, officer. I'm Asher, not Asher Vance." He managed a weak smile. "It's getting late. I should go." "You're going to drive after drinking?" Lena's eyes narrowed, her heart leaping in her throat. "I only had a little," he said dismissively. "It won't affect me." "You call an entire bottle a little?" she deadpanned. From her perspective, his departure was simply not an option. Asher chuckled. "Do I look drunk to you?" His speech was clear, his posture steady. She looked him over. "No. See? No problem." He shrugged. Lena opened another new bottle and filled his glass. "Call an Uber," she said, handing it to him. Asher hesitated. Calling a car service was fine, but what did that have to do with more drinking? "What? You're not having any? You want me to drink alone?" "Did I say I wasn't?" she purred, her cheeks flushed as she refilled her own glass. Seeing no way out, Asher downed as in one go. Thump, thump. Lena could feel her own heartbeat accelerating. She moved closer, her voice a low, intoxicating whisper. "Asher, do you know the meaning of a fateful encounter too late?" He thought for a moment. "It means meeting someone you have an instant, powerful connection with, but wishing you had met them sooner." Lena took a long drink directly from the bottle, abandoning the flute. She was starting to feel a pleasant buzz. "Exactly. That's how I feel about you. You were born when I was not yet born. I was born when you were already old. I know we're not that far apart in age, but I met you too late." She stepped right in front of him, so close he could feel the warmth radiating from her skin. Her eyes reflected his image. "You know, if I had known it would be like this, I never would have let you go. I'm not ready to give up." Her breath smelled of champagne and something uniquely her own. It was dizzying. Asher, a man who had faced down assassins and corporate sharks, felt a flicker of panic. He steadied himself. "It's no use saying that to me." She changed tactics. "I want to invite you to join my company. Not as a public face, but as my personal musical consultant." Her tone was dead serious, her gaze unwavering. Asher was taken aback. "I'm just an amateur when it comes to music," he said with a laugh. "Wouldn't that be like a student trying to teach the master?" "No, you're not," she insisted, her voice sharp with urgency. She reached out and cupped his face, her expression a mixture of reverence and desperation. "Your talent is the greatest I have ever seen. Even better than me in my prime. I believe that if you ever decided to truly enter the industry, you would completely annihilate all of us." This wasn't hyperbole. Based on the songs he'd written, she knew it was the absolute truth. It wasn't a matter of ability, but of desire. He had the power, but he simply chose not to use it. The situation was becoming dangerously intimate. Asher gently took her hand and pulled it away from his face. "We can talk about music, but let's not get physical, okay?" He wasn't a saint. A man has his limits. This casual, constant touching was starting to ignite something he'd been trying to suppress. Lena snapped back to reality, suddenly aware of how close they were, their breath mingling in the small space between them. Their eyes met, and Asher knew what was coming. Her face grew larger in his vision, not because she was a shapeshifter, but because she was leaning in again. He opened his mouth to protest, to stop the spell, but that only gave her the opening she needed. This time, she wasn't going to let him go. She had spent a fortune and countless hours mastering the violin, and yet he played it better than her after years of not touching it. It could only mean one thing. Asher was a musical prodigy of unimaginable proportions, a talent that dwarfed even the most celebrated masters. How could she not be captivated? It was the same reason men loved beautiful women. Women loved handsome, talented men. Asher ticked every single box. She was even willing to fight the she-devil for him. He tried to push her away, but she clung to him like a burr, her grip tightening with every attempt he made to escape. Finally, he gave up. He wasn't afraid of hurting her. He was afraid of making her fall. There's a saying, if you can't beat them, join them. Asher's mind went blank. In that moment, he chose to surrender to the plot. "Can you stay here tonight?" Lena asked, the words tumbling out after only a few seconds of hesitation. She had to say it. If she missed this opportunity, she might never get another one. Asher considered it. It wasn't ideal. Scarlett was out of town, and he hadn't planned on going home anyway. He'd probably just crash at one of his family's hotels. But he could feel the raw, unfiltered emotion radiating from Lena. He smiled, a teasing glint in his eye. You really want me to stay? It's not out of the question. Your place is big enough. Are you offering me an empty room or an empty house? He was cornered, and he knew it. First Serafina, now Lena. He was in full-on passive protagonist mode, but things were escalating far too quickly. He was a taken man. Lena's tipsy, flushed face broke into a radiant smile. She gave him a playful eye roll. There are no empty houses. Only my room. Don't worry, it's very big. Her mind was made up. Once she set her sights on something, or someone, she was relentless. Besides, Asher was a true genius, a man who shared her passions. He could act, he could write music, he could play multiple instruments. Where else in the world would she find a man so perfectly suited to her? The night was growing deeper. Your room is big, he repeated. Great. You sleep there then. He made a move to leave. Lena was not about to let that happen. Asher Vance, you get back here. Aren't you tired? At least finish the champagne, she said, hands on her hips. He glanced at the bottle. It was only half full. Fine. We finish the bottle, then we sleep. Oh no, she said, her eyes sparkling. The night is young. I can't sleep. Let's talk. Okay. You talk, I'll drink. What do you want to talk about? I'm just now realizing the true depth of your talent. I want to explore something deeper with you. Asher frowned. The phrasing was a little strange, but he couldn't quite put his finger on why. It's too late. Tomorrow. He let out a theatrical yawn. With his constitution, he wasn't tired in the slightest, but he could pretend. You can never wake a man who is pretending to sleep. Lena took a deep breath, her voice low and mournful. A river of time separates us, a field of green grass between our shores. To be true to my heart without betraying the world. If you don't tell, and I don't tell, no one will ever know. Asher blinked. The sudden shift to poetic prose was disorienting. In another life, she would have been a renowned scholar. Luckily, he knew a thing or two himself. A golden needle parts the peach blossom, afraid to cry out. She secretly frowns, he countered, his voice laced with irony. Missin, let's not speak of this again. Lena gasped. The man was terrifying. He understood her completely. Her emotions overwhelmed her. Asher, if you reject me again, I'll kill myself. I mean it. Her tone was absolute. A successful, beautiful woman had humbled herself, pleaded with him, and been rejected time and again. Any woman would start to question her own existence. It wasn't about being pretty enough to get what you want. It was about being on the precipice with only a thin veil remaining and still being turned away. If that happened, she'd have nothing left to live for. Scarlett had already given her blessing, and she could feel that Asher wasn't entirely opposed to her. Now, she just needed one final push. Asher was stumped. He stared at her for a few seconds, then chuckled. Do all of you enjoy making threats? I'm not. I'm just trying to pursue what I believe in. I know. All we need is a pair of guns. Guns? What? You can hold one to your head and one to mine and say, if you don't agree, I'll shoot you. And then I'll shoot myself. Lena stared at him, the gears turning in her head. You're making fun of me, she said finally. He nodded, a gentle smile on his face. Yes. That was the final straw. Lena's composure shattered. She threw herself into his arms, and this time, he didn't resist. Sometimes, words do more damage than weapons. And so, silence was the best response. In the beginning, there were no words, only the language of the body. In that moment, they returned to that primal form of communication. As Lena nuzzled against him, a forgotten memory surfaced in Asher's mind. Before he'd been reborn into this world, he'd had a big golden retriever named Buster. Buster was a goofy, lovable dog who would greet him every day after school by rubbing his head against Asher's legs. When he wanted to play, he'd roll onto his back, tongue lolling out, waiting for a belly rub. What was it that made him think of Buster now? Was it love? The moral decay of society? No, it was Lena, and her affectionate, almost frantic nuzzling was exactly what Buster used to do. If she knew what he was thinking right now, he'd be a dead man. As the old saying goes, when you drink, you get drunk. And when you get very drunk, you get very, very bold. Alcohol has a way of short-circuiting the brain's risk assessment centers, making people do things they might otherwise only dream of. Lena was a normal person with normal desires. Most people who are single aren't that way by choice. They either haven't found the right person or haven't found a right opportunity. Lena had found her perfect person, a man who was so exceptional he almost seemed unreal. She wasn't going to let him go, even if it meant sacrificing her pride. The prize was simply too great. Of course, she would later learn why Scarlett was so eager to share him. and on that day, the tears would fall. But the arrow was already loose from the bow. This was the path she had chosen, and she would see it through to the end, even if she had to cry the whole way. The next morning, Asher's eyes fluttered open. He glanced at the time, then decided to go back to sleep. It was a miracle he was even awake. He'd gotten less than 2 hours of sleep. A soft snore emanated from the space beside him. He glanced over, then closed his eyes again. It would be rude to leave now. A proper guest always waits for the host to wake up. The sun was high in the sky when Lena finally stirred. She was groggy and sore, but the feeling of another person beside her was not a dream. She didn't need to pinch herself to know it was real. The dull ache throughout her body was a much more reliable indicator. She winced slightly, then turned to look at the sleeping man beside her. When he was quiet like this, without the constant stream of witty and infuriating thoughts he usually broadcasted, he was devastatingly handsome. He was excellent in every way. His strengths were his strengths, but they were also his weaknesses. He was, she now knew, a little too excellent. She pouted. "You have no idea how unfairly talented you are, you brute," she whispered. The memories of the previous night came flooding back, and a wave of heat washed over her. She was mortified. It was late. She needed to get her revenge, right now. She looked around the room and quickly found what she was looking for. "Oomph. Let's see if you can sleep through this, you monster." Asher, deep in a dream, felt a tickle on his nose. A woman's playful giggle echoed in his ears. "Hee. The sun's already setting, you lazy bum." His eye twitched. The tickling didn't stop. Finally, he couldn't take it anymore. Achoo. He opened his eyes to see Lena perched beside him, a mischievous grin on her face. She was propped up on one elbow, using a lock of her long, dark hair to torment him. Her other leg was bent, her bare foot swinging back and forth in the air. He shot out a hand and grabbed her wrist. "So," he said, his voice husky with sleep, "it seems you've recovered. Feeling energetic, are we? Perhaps you need another lesson." He shifted his weight, preparing to roll over and pin her down. No, I surrender," she shrieked, her face a mask of mock terror as the memory of his overwhelming dominance came rushing back.